Hello, my beautiful blossoms, blooms, and buds, and welcome to my live stream. Actually, welcome to my book garden. I'm Rosebud Reads. I can't remember if I actually said that. I don't think I did. And this is the third streaming of Thousand Autumns Book 1. Hello, Momar's Rover. How are you doing today? Good, I hope. I hope you had a good weekend. I've decided on the green for Thousand Autumns. I know, I've changed it up every single stream. Like, what color are we going to do? I think I'm going to stick to the green. I like it. I forgot to turn on my backlights. Not that they help a lot, but I was like, it's surprisingly dark where I am. Oh, and I forgot to tuck in the cord back there. Oh, well. Hello, Annika. Shen Qiao vibes. A little bit. Hello, Chichi Kiki. Oh. Well, I hear you about the really tired, and bunch of work. I hope tomorrow's less work, but still lots of productivity. And I'm glad you're happy to be here. I hope you enjoy. I might have to take a couple more breaks than usual to blow my nose. I think I might be getting a little bit of like a head cold. I don't feel bad. I just when I get sick, my voice gets deeper. So I might sound a little different if you're listening to all these back to back. And gets cold in the basement, so I've got a heating pad. But hope it isn't too distracting. Oh yes. This is a chill stream. That means that I will be talking to myself. I will be talking to my lovely chat, and I will be talking to and about the book. This will not just be a straight read through. I will be making side comments, and if that's not really your thing, this might not really be your thing, but maybe stick around, see if you like it. I mean, you're here for the third one. You must like something about it. Hello, Plude. How are you today? Now, would you like Plude or Starklord? Or the whole thing? I'm okay saying Plude Starklord every time, but like some people have a preference, which is completely fine. Just let me know. Plude is fine. Awesome. I will stick to Plude then. How are you doing today? Oh, you said you're good. Awesome. Oh yes, I am not sponsored, though if Seven Seas ever decides to sponsor me for some reason, that'd be fantastic, but I highly doubt it'll happen or will happen anytime soon, if ever. The only thing I own is my time and the physical copy that's resting over there. I don't claim anything. I don't make anything. I'm just here. Thank you. It's finally gotten colder around in my area, but now it's kind of the opposite thing where for like an hour or half an hour a day, I'll be outside. So at least half an hour. So now I actually have to care. So you'll see a lot more sweaters in the streams. But thank you, Truffle. How you doing tonight? Oh yes, and I am very excited to say some things came in the mail. Some things I've been waiting a long time for, but other things less so. So we'll start. Which do you want to do? Something that's long ago or something I ordered more recently? Oh, how was your trip? Yeah, how was the camping trip? I mean, cold, apparently, from that comment. Whichever thing is gay. They're both gay. It's all gay. Although I think this one's probably more gay. this one's more gay. I thought about it. The view is spectacular. That's amazing. I haven't gone camping in so long. I think it's literally been at least like 3 or 4 years. I don't have people to go camping. Like the people around me, they're like, I love my parents, but they're older. So like it's hard for them to go camping, which understandably, like, but the siblings I would go camping with, like they now live in another state. So like that's out. But you're on top of a bluff. Wow, that sounds amazing. Oh, I'm really happy for you, Truffle. Always trying to make cosplay campouts, but people keep like, that sounds really cool too. Or just like cosplay picnic. That would sound amazing. Okay. So, yeah. If you ever want to share, I still haven't gotten that community post to work. I don't know. It's the strangest thing. So, my comments are not your government name, like not the at. But I can't get my community post to work. Well, Kickter has the government names over there of the ats, and then her community post works. So I'm like, YouTube's messing around with us, with everybody. Okay, so this is the one I ordered a long time ago. I don't know if like you guys even remember me ordering these. But we will start with the funniest thing, and I have no idea. Oh, they're pins. Oh, that's definitely going in that eat a bag. I'm not sure how relevant this meme still is. Went to an astrology thing and hiked a few trails. Bluff Trail was a trial, though. So much uphill walking. Oh, that is. I hope you had good shoes. Okay. So let's try. I'll do them one at a time. Do you guys remember the meme? Hang on, my face is in the way. There's that one. Shizoon! And there's also this one. So I guess the before and after. Yeah. I wasn't sure what exactly I was going to get with these, but when I saw that there was something that had this on it, I just was like, oh my god, I have to get these. I love the cringe culture that I can find. Like, so far it's just been Scumvillain that has the cringe culture. I mean, the closest I've gotten to cringe culture with Modao Zushi is Baichen, which I haven't found a Baichen yet. If you know, you know. And the Cornetto ice cream cones, like I have the Cornetto Wei Wuxian and Lamonji. Like, and then I guess I don't know about Heaven Officials cringe culture. Like I'm not as much in that fandom, if as you probably guessed from me just having mostly suggestions for Scumvillain and Modao Zushi. But you made the Cornetto cones for cosplay. That's awesome. But yeah, if you guys know of any cringe culture for Heaven Officials, like please share it. I'd love to hear about it because I actually searched that stuff out because I think it's hilarious. That's also why I think I told you I joined a Skinzoon Zine and have one coming in a couple months. So that'll be fun to share. But that's coming. Less cringe, but still really cute. We have Shizoon. And I will count Shy Lien's cooking cringe culture. And then Bingha. They're super cute. The green's kind of like blending in with their skin a little bit, but I think you could still see it. They both are like, it was an interesting post. He is dizzy and Bingha's sad. But I don't know why he's dizzy. He just, like, it was cute, and there's really not that much scum villain stuff out there, so I was like, click, yep, I'll take it. They go on the wall. Pop them right here. Oh no. I'll go down. There we go. Okay. Slightly less cringe, still pretty funny. The big box. Any guesses on the fandom while I'm opening this? It's one of the things we've read. So that'll give you a little hint. I have not seen these yet. I thought I'd open it together. All right. Any guesses? No guesses? Well, the box is destroyed, but at least the little tag is intact. I didn't know that this was official. I guess it is. Huh. Not pet fish, but good guess. Does this help? We have buddy number 1. And little mushroom baby. I know. When I saw that they had these, oh my gosh. You think that's funny? Give it a second. This one's hilarious. This one's amazing. His hat is so big. Look at his hat. It's huge. Lu Feng and Anja. I was excited to find merch of them anyway, but I did not expect the hat to be this big. Like, in comparison, look at that. That's great. But yeah, I was really excited. These came. Right? They're so big it's comical. I think these ones can go up by the thank you. He really is channeling Jingguan Yao. Ugh. Super death hat. Yeah. And that is the fun stuff that I've gotten. I think I have one more thing that's on the way. It's like Danmei adjacent. It's unofficial Danmei. These will need to go over here, where I will not misplace them because they are tiny. Be very sad if I lost cucumber and sausage Bingha Bing Chu. Alright, let's not knock over everything. Especially not the candle. That'd be bad. Oh, yes. We also need to do our fanfic recs. 1 second. Oh, no worries, Peacock Pages. Oh, you had to grab a glass of wine so you're able to tolerate Yan Wuxi. You just missed some of the silliness I opened up, but that'll be something fun to look back on. But I can at least show you these. I got some packages. This is part of the package. This is one of those cringe things from Scum Villain. Nope, stop focusing on my face. There we go. Right? And then yeah, 2 glass tolerance at least. You know what? I'll go get them. We only just put them up, but I can show you. It's a good day for mail. Okay, so this was the other silly thing that I got. It's our Mushroom Boys, but his hat is huge. Look at this. It's bigger than his body. Like, they're so funny. Right? Like, no Scum Villain merch. To the boys. And we don't know why Shen Qiao has, like, dizzy eyes. But, right? But that's a lot of what we were doing earlier. And then we were just getting to our fic recs before we began. All right, so here are the recommendations. So the Scum Villain recommendation I picked this week. It's kind of funny. It's a short but spicy pick to start the week. 18 plus on this one. So if you are not 18 plus, one, I'm a little confused why you're here, but understandable to be curious about Danmei and different things. But if you're not 18 plus, please don't read this recommendation. It's called The Best Seat in the House by Titans R Us. So, the summary is a day where Liu Qingya has his empress preside and rule in Demon Court. It's a surprise that anything gets done. Luckily, Shen Qiao knows exactly how to prioritize despite his husband's best efforts to distract him. So that one's spicy. Because we all know the kind of simp Qingya is. Let's be real. For the Modao Zushi fic recommendation, I picked The World is But a Stage for the Two of Us by M&M. It's a kind of cracky fic from the point of view of everyone but Wang Xian after they both time travel back to the Cloud Recessive days, are being terribly shameless about everything, all while thinking they're being subtle, like always. Yes, Titans R Us is a great author, too. I have a number of stories from them that are chef's gifts. You know that one? It's pretty good. That one's pretty well known. So the summary is nope. Jiang Chang will never believe the rumors regarding his Shixian and the second young Master Lan. That is, until he overhears the unmistakable voice of Wei freaking Wuxian and Lamanji doing God knows what near the waterfalls of Gusu. Or post-canon Wang Xian time traveled in all of their shameless glory and everyone suffers from the PDA. I included the little author note, which was, yo, this is a fun little thing I started last April. Decided to post this instead of letting it rot in my folder. Oh, right? Okay. No, yeah, it is an amazing handle. Right? Yeah. Oh, no. Oh, it's hilarious. It's so funny. Yeah. No, it's definitely worth the read. I go back to that one frequently when I need a chuckle. Chen Cheng would probably mail Wei Wuxian back to Lotus Pier. He definitely has an interesting reaction. I'll give you that. No, those are just some spicy / fun ones to start off the week. Both of them aren't super long, so just kind of something fun to start your Tuesday. Well, to end your Tuesday, I guess, is more like it. But that being said, it is now time to start our story. Let me write down. What is this? Stop that. And I hope that the chapters, I've actually went back and marked all the chapters for Thousand Autumns. So each chapter is now time-stamped, Truffle. And anyone else who's reading, I will try to remember to do that from now on. 1 second. I'm just writing them down real quick. 13. Oh, good. When I realized that we were just starting a new chapter, I didn't put the 4 truffle this time. But what chapter are we going to? Okay, we're going through 16. Not sure if I'm actually writing or just scratching through the paper with this pen. But it works. I'm prepared. I have an extra pot of tea over there just in case I run out of tea and start getting froggy. Okay, so the actual timestamp will be like 22:30. Okay. Everybody's still kung fu fighting. All right. Yes. So we ended last time with our mysterious hand coming and grasping, appearing out of the darkness, stretching over to grab this monk by the wrist. It wasn't fast, and the movement itself was unremarkable, devoid of any flashy maneuvers. The hand was slender and pale, smooth and unmarred. She could see it was a man's hand, and the hand of someone high status, who'd enjoyed many luxuries over the years. Everybody was kung fu fighting. Fast as lightning. And they were. Everyone was kung fu fighting. So we shall begin chapter 11. Each with their own schemes. The young monk was disinclined to admire this hand. Instead, she was seized with terror. She had no idea where it had come from and was helpless to resist as it clamped onto her wrist. Ah! A sharp pain radiated from where she'd been grabbed, forcing a cry of pain from her. Any man who heard her would waver, even if he wasn't usually moved by a pretty face. Unluckily for her, she was wearing the plain and simple face of a monk, so the effect was less than ideal. On top of that, this particular man had a heart of stone. I love how they always make sure we know the hand is attractive. Hands and ankles here. The moment her wrist shattered, she flew up into the air. He'd tossed her away. Ow, shattered wrist. Ouch. Her petite body slammed right into the pillar. It shook with the force of her impact, and the young monk fell to the ground, crying out pitifully, while hacking up mouthful after mouthful of blood. One of her wrists was crushed, and her other hand had been pierced through by the dagger. Both were reduced to a miserable mosaic of flesh and blood. One thing about this author that I absolutely adore is that they really do well with descriptive language and painting an image. And yet, she seemed unconcerned. She stared unswervingly at the man who'd injured her, her voice and volume slurring from the blood in her mouth. Who are you? The man in blue said, No need to stare. Jingxing and Shu Shu together couldn't be sure of besting me, let alone you. The author really likes alliteration too, or the translator does. That's right. I've noticed that too. Bairong's expression shifted. And may I ask for this distinguished master's esteemed name? From the sidelines, another person had the answer already. What are you doing here, sect leader Yan? Sect leader Yan? Yan Wuxi? Bairong's eyes flew wide open in disbelief. At the topmost discipline in Hihuan sect, as the topmost disciple in Hihuan sect, she'd often heard the name Yan Wuxi. Though the three demonic sects came from the same roots, they'd been at odds for a long time, and during the 10 years that Yan Wuxi was off the scene, Hihuan sect took quite a few opportunities to make trouble for Huan Yue sect and kick them while they were down. Now that Yan Wuxi was back in the Jianghu, the injuries he'd given her, she couldn't exactly call them unprovoked. It's a really fun writing style, very visceral. That's a good word for it. Yes, I agree, Momar's Rover. Yan Wuxi sneered. If even a bald old donkey is invited, why can't I come? As Yan Wuxi spoke, a monk holding a jade chime walked slowly out from the darkness, but he looked nothing like the bald old donkey Yan Wuxi called him. His face was as smooth as jade, and he couldn't have been far over 30 years old. His monk's robes were snow white and pristine, and even without speaking, he embodied the phrase, a monk of the highest esteem, an enlightenment. When he revealed himself, Murong Qin and Tuo Ba Liang Shi, the younger generation, showed little reaction. But Murong Qin and Yun Fuyi's expressions changed completely. I never guessed that two such exalted and esteemed people would be found skulking around in the shadows, sneaking into Qi to steal the Shu Yang strategy. Buddhist master Shu Ting, the state preceptor of Shao, and sect leader Yan, a grand master of his generation. You're trying to take advantage of the situation for your own gain? How brazen! Pot calling kettle black? The Murong patriarch need not be so agitated, said Buddhist master Shu Ting. Ever since the Duke of Jin's death, His Majesty of Shao has prohibited both Buddhism and Taoism. This humble monk has long ceased to be the state preceptor of Shao. I only came here tonight at the request of an old friend, and I hope that Deputy Leader Yun can give the item to me so that I may return it to its original owner. That way I can grant his long-cherished wish. Bairong spat out a frothy mouthful of blood and giggled. I've never seen a monk so shameless. It's obvious you have designs on the treasure, yet you invent this old friend's request. Everyone knows that the Shu Yang strategy has been without an owner since Tao Hongjing died. Tao Hongjing came to you in a dream, did he? And did he ask you to collect the Shu Yang strategy, then send it to him by burning it? In Taoism, burning an item can grant it to the deceased in the afterlife. Buddhist master Shu Ting showed no emotion and put his hands together. It was as if he hadn't heard Bairong's words at all. With the addition of these two men, Murong Qin and Bairong didn't dare to venture another attack on Yun Fuyi, but Yun Fuyi didn't feel the slightest bit of relief. On the contrary, her mood sank even lower. Since Chief Fenggui's passing, there had been no martial artist whose capabilities could surpass the top 10. Buddhist master Shu Ting and Yan Wuxi both ranked in the top 10. Shu Ting's sheer power was too great to measure, but likely placed him in the top 3. Yan Wuxi had been missing for many years, but the moment he'd resurfaced within the Jianghu, he had thoroughly overpowered the martial expert of the Gokturk's new generation, Kunyi. And it was Kunyi who defeated Xuandu's mountain sect leader. Yun Fuyi couldn't handle either of them. Could have known that both would show up at once. Thinking of how their guild leader, Dao Yanshan, had entrusted this mission to her put a bitter taste in her mouth. It wasn't that she didn't want to try her best, but the way things went tonight was seriously unprecedented. All of these people were indeed at odds with each other, but they all shared a common goal: the Zhuyang strategy scroll that she had in her possession. That kind of really sucks to be her right now. Tao Hongjin's Zhuyang strategy was divided into 5 volumes: Conscious Mind, Corrupted Anima, Lost Soul, Clouded Essence, and Deluded Thought. The 5 volumes were also matched to the 5 phrases and corresponded to the vital organs of the human body. So we kind of went through that in our first, I was about to say episode, our first live stream with the historical primer regarding the body and stuff. So if you're confused, it says look back, see the special glossary entry, Taoist cultivation, the Zhuyang strategy, and power of 5. But yes. The complete set was a fusion of all 3 schools of thought and considered one of a kind, a book of legend. 3 volumes had been located, one in Xiao's inner palace, one on Xuandu Mountain, and the last in Tiantai sect. The whereabouts of the other 2 were unknown. With the scrolls they had in hand, Xuandu Mountain and Tiantai sect were secure in their places as 2 of the world's greatest martial sects, standing over the schools of Taoism and Buddhism, respectively. It was by this very stroke of luck that Chief Fenggui became the #1 martial expert in the world. Yes, his disciple Shen Qiao was rather disappointing, and he'd even gotten himself thrown off a mountain in defeat. But that was only because Shen Qiao's learning was unrefined. It had nothing to do with the Zhuyang strategy. If someone possessed just 1 volume and absorbed all it had to give, comprehending its subtleties, and, well, then that might be enough to propel them to Chief Fenggui's level. They'd become the #1 martial artist in the world. Currently, the 3 volumes that had been accounted for were properly stored away by their respective sects. They wouldn't be easy for anyone to take them by force. But the last 2 volumes were without an owner, there for the taking by those who were capable. Hence, when news quietly spread that Yun Fuyi was carrying one such Zhuyang strategy scroll, their group was beset by wave after wave of robbers. The Liu He Guild hadn't known the truth. They really did believe the 2 chests they were transporting were hiding some sort of rare treasure. When they heard that Yun Fuyi carried the Zhuyang strategy with her, they were all stunned, frozen, and had yet to recover. In the silence of this many-sided stalemate, each party regarded the others with wary apprehension. Not one dared to make the first move. I suddenly feel like it's like the Spider-Man meme, like, you! Not quite it, but like same feeling. Murong Qin wanted to take the scroll by force, but he knew for certain that the moment he tried something, the monk, Shu Ting, and Yan Wuxi would move to stop him. You were just going to say that because it does feel like that. Mexican standoff for sure. Yes. Are you hungry for some blueberry pie, Truffle? If you don't get the reference, it's okay. Yun Fuyi stood at the center of... Oh, hi, Esper Lady. Welcome. We started not too long ago. Yan Wuxi showed up, was super dramatic, and now we're just kind of rehashing what people are here. And a little bit more about the Zhu Yang strategy, but that was also in the historical primer. So you haven't missed much. We just had the reveal that, surprise, it was Yan Wuxi. Shocker. But yeah, welcome. Oh, and I had a few things in the mail. So that's at the beginning if you want to watch that later. There's some cute and some silly ones. In the silence of this many-sided stalemate, each party regarded the others with wary apprehension. Not one dared make the first move. No, I already read that. Yun Fuyi stood at the center of this vortex, brimming with silent anxiety, but there was nothing she could do. Even if she made it through tonight, tomorrow the news would spread further. She knew that more and more people would come after this treasure. If she didn't resolve this, even Mount Tai Bixia sect and Lin Xuan Academy might catch the scent of blood in the water. If that happened, how would the Liu He Guild ever know peace again? She decided then and there to abandon her original plan, settling for the next best option. She chose the one person on the scene who looked the most trustworthy. The saying is true, she said. Only the capable achieve their aims. The Liu He Guild lacks the strength to hold on to this treasure. Instead of a blessing, for us it's a curse. I'm willing to hand over the Zhu Yang strategy in exchange for peace. I asked the Great Master, if I give you the Zhu Yang strategy scroll, can you guarantee the safety of me and my subordinates? Buddhist Master Shu Ting chanted the name of Buddha, then said, Deputy Leader Yun is deeply principled. This humble monk will do his utmost to fulfill her request. Note how he didn't say yes. He said, I'll do my best. Not good enough. Yun Fuyi went back and forth in her mind, weighing, considering, then weighing again. Finally, she grit her teeth and fished a small bamboo tube out of her lapel. Hu Yan and Hu Yu craned their necks to gape at it, and even Bai Rong couldn't help but straighten up and pay attention. It was hard to imagine that this ordinary bamboo tube, thinner than a woman's wrist, could contain one of the Zhu Yang strategy scrolls that everyone in the world desired. Always a red flag. Suspicious! Yeah, he's like, no guarantees. Well, you're not wrong, Truffle. Sadly, it's probably the best offer. Yeah. Oh, I also have to brag on one of my my coworkers. It's Diwali right now, and she actually all gave us gifts and stuff. So she's amazing. So I'm bragging on her because she's really sweet and awesome. So if any of you celebrate, happy Diwali. But yeah, my coworkers are awesome. Since she was unable to fight with her injured hands, Bai Rong simply leaned against a pillar and watched the show. But Murong Qin had transformed into a shadow at once and was already targeting that tube. Before he could get close to Yun Fuyi, the wind from Buddhist Master Shu Ting's palm fluttered to him from behind, carrying on it the unceasing ringing of the jade chime. The sound could pierce right through to one's heart, and when it hit Murong Qin's ears, he was just as stricken as Yu Fuyi had been. His feet weighed 1,000 pounds or more. His chest went stiflingly tight, and he wanted to vomit. He knew that it must be the jade chime's influence, so he blocked out the noise as well as he could and continued to move. He kept reaching out towards the tube in Yun Fuyi's hands. Yan Wuxi moved to interfere as well, though none could say why. His body barely moved, and without even a flicker of shadow, he was standing behind Murong Qin. He reached out, but it wasn't to stop Murong Qin from grabbing the tube. Instead, it was to stop Buddhist master Shu Ting. In the space of a moment, they exchanged no less than several dozen moves. Of course, Chen Gong was dazzled watching this, and he had no idea what was happening. Even rising stars like Hu Yan and Hu Yu were in a fog of confusion. Chen Gong's head was spinning, but he couldn't make himself look away. While he was absorbed, Shen Qiao grabbed his shoulder and whispered, "Get up! Go!" Typically, whenever Shen Qiao said one line, Chen Gong would counter with 3, but just this once he obeyed without a word. He set his jaw, struggling to stand up, and made a run for it. But just when he'd gotten to his feet, Chen Gong felt a strong force take hold of him by the back and lift him up. His whole body soared high into the air. He screamed in a panic. He couldn't help it. When Yan Wuxi tossed him down onto the roof, Chen Gong's legs gave out and he fell right to his knees, nearly tumbling right back down to the ground. He'd been terribly unlucky this entire night. His heart quailed in despair as he looked up and saw someone else standing next to Yan Wuxi. Shen Qiao had been dragged up there with him. Shen Qiao was even holding a bamboo tube forced into his hand by Yan Wuxi, and he was at a loss as to whether to hold on to it or toss it away. Bewildered and helpless, he said, "We're only insignificant people rooming here for the night. We're completely unrelated to the affairs of the Jianghu. All debts have their debtors, so can sect leader Yan please not toy with us?" It's like, I want none of this shit. I am unrelated. Do not pull me into this. No. No. Yan Wuxi was all smiles. "How can you say I'm toying with you? I'm giving you two a huge advantage. Something everyone under heaven desires. And right now, it's in your hands. Are you really not even the slightest bit happy?" Who could have dreamed that Yan Wuxi would step in only to hand the bamboo tube over to two unrelated, utterly insignificant people? Immediately, everyone on the scene was staring at Shen Qiao with blazing intensity, as if trying with all their might to burn a hole right through him. Buddhist master Shu Ting frowned. Why is sect leader Yan involving outsiders in this? Yan Wuxi fussed carelessly with a jade tassel tied to his robe. Don't you all want to see what's written in there? There's no point to all this fighting. It's better if everyone gets a share. Of course, if I were to read the scroll aloud, no one would believe me. And if you were to read it, I wouldn't believe you either. So, I'll give it to him to read. That's better. How much he reads and how much you hear, well, that will have to depend on your own good fortune. To be fair, that's kind of smart because, like, let's be real. All these people are trying to screw each other over. So there's no trust and nobody's going to just hand it over to the other. So the only way to actually have it be out there is probably to do this. So, like, he's pretty smart about that, but he's also doing this to screw over Shen Qiao. Like, we totally know. Sorry, Shen Qiao, as far as Yan Wuxi is concerned, you are a toy. Yeah, basically that. He's just doing this to fuck with people. Let's be real. Alright, next chapter is 4420. Come on. Ah! Alright, we're just going to put that there. Chapter 12, Human Nature. Many people had heard of Yan Wushi's unreasonable ways and the irrational steps he'd take. When Bai Rong heard his proposal, she was actually quite pleased. Tonight, she was the only one present from Huan sect. With the likes of Buddhist master Shu Ting and Yan Wuxi around, she had absolutely no hope of getting her hands on the Zhu Yang strategy. Not to mention, she had also been injured. What is that noise? I do not like it. It sounded creepy. Number 1 troll of the Jianghu. Like a skittering sound. Like, no more mice down here, please. If they went along with Yan Wushi's suggestion, then as long as she heard a couple of words, she would not only benefit her martial arts, but she would also have an explanation to give when she got home. With this in mind, she fixed her gaze on the bamboo tube in Shen Qiao's hand. Murong Qin's party had the same reaction. Only Buddhist master Shu Ting objected. Sect leader Yan, he said. This man is an outsider to the Jianghu. There are so many who covet the Zhu Yang strategy, but cannot obtain it. If the news spreads that he recited the scroll today, he surely will be attacked by some no-good villainous rabble. You wouldn't have killed him, but he would have died because of you. Oh, no. Really? Who would have known, says Yan Wuxi. Not really, but we know. That's hypocritical of you, isn't it, you bald donkey? Yan Wuxi replied lazily. You must have read the volume that's in the inner palace of Shao when you were there as the state preceptor. And you used to be a disciple of Tian Tai sect. Your master Huai Wen was still alive when you betrayed them. Considering how highly he regarded you, he probably let you read Tian Tai sect's volume 2. Add in this volume tonight, and you'll have obtained 3 of the 5 volumes. The phrase, playing the victim after you got away with murder, comes to mind. He's out here like, yeah, bro, that's the whole point. Strangely enough, Murong Qin agreed with Yan Wuxi. Great master, you're a virtuous and noble man. Since you don't wish to listen, just leave. Why stand in everyone else's way? Why give such a meandering, long-winded speech? Is it because you're disappointed that you can't have it all to yourself? Buddhist master Shu Ting sighed, but finally stopped talking. Yan Wuxi simply pressed 2 fingers against a key acupoint in Shen Qiao's back, saying to him, read. To everyone else, it looked like Yan Wuxi was threatening him. Only Shen Qiao knew that Yan Wuxi actually just used some sort of secret method that instantly opened several of his blocked meridians. A warm stream of true qi flowed through his body, and the scene before his eyes gradually cleared. Finally, he could see just as well as anyone. No one present would suspect that Yan Wuxi had saved Shen Qiao's life, but despite that connection between them, Shen Qiao was under no illusion that Yan Wuxi held him in any special regard. He had his suspicions about what was really going on, and he felt like his own regard for Yan Wuxi grew colder at the thought. Resigned, Shen Qiao lifted the bamboo tube, then slowly unscrewed the cap and pulled out a rolled bamboo slip. The bamboo had been sliced incredibly thin. Once unrolled, it was almost a meter long. Do you want to know a fun way to measure what a meter is? And it's not exact, but this is a sewing thing. So your nose to your arm is a meter, approximately. So it's about yay big. Decently long. No, that's a yard. I'm thinking a yard. My bad. Not a meter, a yard. What's the difference? I'm having a math brain fart. difference between a meter and a meter is slightly longer than a yard. A meter equals 0.9144 meters, or about 39.37 inches, while 1 yard equals 36 inches. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Meter is just a little bit longer. Sorry. Tangent. See, this is why it's chill stream, because I go off on tangents. Okay. The words written on it were very small, but with his vision temporarily restored, Shen Qiao could just about read them by the light of the moon. So, just a little longer than that. Every gaze in the temple burned into him. If they could have burned him in truth, Shen Qiao guessed that his body would be scorched to cinders. He squinted as he examined the words and slowly read them out, one by one. The pancreas conceals the thought. Hu Tai Tian begets the deluded thought, while Xian Tian begets integrity. As an ordinary person without any internal energy, his voice wasn't very loud, but most of the listeners present were anything but ordinary, so they could hear and understand clearly. The writing on the bamboo slip eventually came to an end. No matter how slowly Shen Qiao read, within half an hour he was finished. His mouth dry from speaking, he returned the bamboo slip to Yan Wuxi, and Yan Wuxi's hand withdrew from his back. The ocean of warmth vanished in an instant, and darkness engulfed Shen Qiao's vision once more. On top of that, his eyes began to ache, a searing pain like they'd been burned, perhaps because he'd overtaxed them. Eye pain is the worst. He had to cover his eyes with one hand and steady himself using the bamboo cane with the other, bowing over at the waist as he panted. Yan Wuxi took the slip and paid Shen Qiao no attention. He didn't speak a word, but with a shake of his sleeves and a flick of his hand, the roll of bamboo instantly burst into fine powder and scattered into the air. Everyone was dumbfounded. Murong Qin was fiery and young. He couldn't help but yell, "The Zhuyang strategy was incredibly precious and you destroyed it!" "Only something that's gone can be called precious," said Yan Wuxi coolly. "He's already read it. However much you remember is your own problem." I pity the poor person who had to put that in the tube. Probably the original dude, because no one else knew it. Murong Qin stared at him, huffing and puffing, speechless. Yan Wuxi dusted off his hands, flicked off the powder that had fallen on his sleeves. Then he turned right around and left without the slightest care. What a diva. Few people in the world could have stopped him. Buddhist master Shu Ting didn't move, and so the others could only watch as his silhouette faded into the darkness. Ignoring her injuries, Bai Rong left just after him. Not to chase after Yan Wuxi, but to quickly find a place where she could write down everything that she remembered. Murong Qin and Tu Liang Xun both looked to Murong Qin. He thought it over for a moment, then made his decision. "Let's go." Without even a glance to Yun Fuyi and her people, the three of them turned around and left as well. Buddhist master Shu Ting let out a quiet sigh. "Deputy leader Yun had a real scare tonight," he said to her. "Please give my humble regards to guild leader Dao." He was part of the group who'd gotten in her way, but now that the scroll was destroyed, Yun Fuyi had no interest in castigating him. "Take care, great master," she said coolly. Once Buddhist master Shu Ting was gone, she had Hu Yan and Hu Yu help the two hall masters to their feet, then said to Shen Qiao and Chen Gong, "You suffered an undeserved disaster tonight, and it was all caused by the Liu He Guild. I apologize deeply for this. I don't know where the two of you are headed next, but if it's convenient and on our way, we can escort you a short distance." Before, Chen Gong would have been elated at her offer, but the extraordinary events that night had showed him the meaning of the phrase, "always a better person, always a higher sky." His enthusiasm had waned quite a bit. Still, he didn't want to lose this opportunity to enter the Jianghu and stewed over how to answer. Next to him, Shen Qiao took the chance to speak first. "Thank you for your kindness," he said. "We were planning to head south and seek help from our relatives. Never did we expect to encounter something like this. We're very afraid now and only wish to hasten on our journey to arrive at the southern border as soon as possible. We are not people of the Jianghu and don't want to be involved in its affairs. Please forgive us." Yuan Fuyi mused. "Do you remember the contents of what you read just now?" she asked. Shen Qiao shook his head. "We've been poor since childhood. My cousin cannot read or write, and I myself only have a rough understanding. I've never read any classics, and my eyes are poor. I don't know what mythic technique that master used, but just now when he pressed his hand upon my back, I was able to see the words upon the bamboo slip. Once I finished and he removed his hand, though, I couldn't see anything clearly, let alone recall it." Yun Fuyi noticed that his eyes had indeed had something wrong with them. They were unfocused, the whites of them faintly blue. Knowing that he wasn't lying, she was a little sorry she'd asked. "Very well. We set out. We must set out tonight, so we'll be leaving momentarily. If the two of you ever find yourself in need of urgent help, you can go to the Liu He Guild branch within the city and tell them that you know me. My name is Yun Fuyi." Shen Qiao thanked her gracefully. Chen Gong looked at him, then followed suit. Yun Fuyi's party didn't linger. They didn't even bother with the two chests they had brought. Hu Yan and Hu Yu took the injured hallmasters, and they all rushed to the city that very night. In no time at all, the large temple was emptied and desolate. As they watched the figures vanish before him, Chen Gong pondered Shen Qiao gently. His voice still low, as if he was afraid of being overheard, he said, "When she asked us to leave with them just now, why didn't you agree? Wouldn't it be safer?" Shen Qiao's eyes still ached terribly, but he smiled despite the pain. "Then why didn't you stop me when I answered them just now and say that you wanted to go with them?" Chen Gong hesitated for a moment. "You're more trustworthy than they are." Shen Qiao sighed. "Deputy Leader Yun probably invited us along because she was afraid she wouldn't remember everything she'd heard. She hoped we could help her write down the contents of the scroll. The outside world is sure to hear the news about what happened here tonight, and they'll try every trick in the book to get a copy of the scroll. If we went with them, we'd be the first to be abandoned in the face of any real danger." Understanding dawned on Chen Gong. "No wonder. I was wondering why that bitch was being so kind all of a sudden," he cursed. "Her heart was full of bad intentions the entire time. If you hadn't stopped me, I really would have gone with them." A little harsh there, Chen Gong, especially considering yourself in the future. "Anyway, I'm only guessing," said Shen Qiao. "Since the Zhu strategy is so precious, they're terrified they'll forget it, so they'll definitely find a place to stop and write it from memory first thing. Whatever they write down will be highly sought after. Everyone will try to get their hands on it. We're not people of the Jianghu. If we travel with them, we gain nothing. We'd only get caught up in their disasters. Chen Gong hung his head, depressed. You're right. I used to think the Liu He Guild branch in Funing country looked so mighty. County looked so mighty and grand. So I wanted to join them. But after tonight, I'm letting go of that fantasy. I don't know a scrap of martial arts. Even if I did get in, I'd only be doing odd jobs for the rest of my life. Nothing wrong with that, just saying. At least you'd be fed. The two of them headed back inside together. Less than half an hour had passed since the incident, and the pain in Shen Qiao's eyes had finally let up a bit. But when he opened them, he couldn't see a thing. They'd returned to their worst state, just as they'd been when he'd first woken up after his fall. Shen Qiao pondered the move that Yan Wuxi had used on him back on the roof. His vision would almost certainly need several months or even years to return to normal, but Yan Wuxi had used some technique that got them working perfect in an instant. The result allowed him a temporary reprieve from the dark, but it would cost him an even longer recovery. It's like everything Yan Wuxi does. It just makes more trouble for him. A wry smile came across Shen Qiao's face. He'd seen firsthand how cold and heartless that man was. As for why Yan Wuxi had saved him, that probably wasn't out of the goodness of his heart either. But was it really just a coincidence that Yan Wuxi showed up at the temple tonight? Chen Gong tugged on his sleeve. Say, he said, his tone carrying a slight tremble. That young monk back there was someone else in disguise. Then the temple's original abbot and monks, were they already silenced? Shen Qiao didn't answer. Perhaps that spoke for itself, for Chen Gong's face paled and he went quiet too. He'd once prided himself on his fearlessness. Now, for the first time, he became deeply aware of the importance of strength. In a world like this, without the necessary strength, you could end up as prey at any moment. You could die for no reason whatsoever. The temple's old abbot and the two young monks were indeed dead. Their corpses were in the old abbot's room, and the murderer hadn't even bothered to cover them up, just left them sprawled awkwardly where they'd fallen. When Chen Gong saw them, his knees went weak with fear. He couldn't muster the strength to properly arrange their bodies. Instead, he simply crawled his way back out, all the way until he saw Shen Qiao. Only then did he calm down a little. Although Shen Qiao was blind once more, he could still give others some sense of strength just by sitting there quietly. With trembling lips, Chen Gong asked him, Did that woman who disguised herself as a monk kill them? Why did she have to kill them? She was so powerful she could have just stopped them from moving or talking. Perhaps this is just her style of doing things, Shen Qiao was silent for a moment. There are some people who need no reason to act. They relish in having power over other people's lives and believe that their whims should override what matters to others. Yeah, I agree, Truffle. I also felt bad for those three. They just were being kind and offering shelter. Chen Gong stared blankly at the ground. The dried blood on the old abbot's body still haunted him. What happened tonight had completely upended all that he'd seen and heard for the past 10-some years of his life, and he was still neck-deep in shock. He couldn't return to his senses for a long time. I must not become someone who other people will butcher and slaughter. I will become someone with power over others. As Chen Gong thought this, he recalled those great masters he'd seen tonight. There'd been the calm and collected Buddhist master Shu Ting, who was untouched by the mundane world. And then there was the ostentatious and volatile Yan Wuxi. This man, who did as he pleased, stirred a greater admiration in Chen Gong. Of course he'd look up to Yan Wuxi. Shen Qiao didn't know the boy's thoughts and only assumed that he'd been frightened silly. He patted Chen Gong's shoulder. Meetings are ordained by fate, he said gently. The old habit lent us this temple to stay in, and that, too, was a kindness. Tomorrow, let's you and I bury them together. Chen Gong let out a long breath. All right. Okay. Hang on. Say 106 because I have to take a sip. Chapter 13. Dangerous Encounter. Early the next morning, they hastily buried the abbot and the 2 monks, then entered the city straight away. After what had happened the night before, Chen Gong had become nervous and jumpy, like a bird that started at the sight of a bow. He was unwilling to stay in the city even a moment too long, and when he saw the local Liu He Guild branch's signboard in the distance, he refused to move any closer and pulled Shen Qiao in the other direction. He didn't know whether to laugh or to cry at the boy. No one will notice us, said Shen Qiao. They don't even know our names. They're interested in other people, not us, so don't worry so much. Just then, a laugh sputtered from up above them, atop a wall. I think his concern is somewhat warranted myself, although the light was so dim last night that I failed to notice how handsome this gentleman was. I almost passed you right by. The voice was sweet and delicate, but most importantly, it was alarmingly familiar. I do like Bai Rong. Chen Gong shuddered with recognition. Lifting his head, he saw a young girl sitting atop the wall, dark-haired and clothed in red. Her hair was bound in a bun by a golden hoop, and she was smiling right at them. A lovely, charming smile. Other than that voice, nothing about her resembled the young monk from the night before. On any other day of his life, if Chen Gong had come face to face with such a beautiful girl while walking down the street, he would have been eyeing her up. But he remembered the 3 dead monks at the temple and the state he'd found them in. He went cold all over and couldn't muster the courage to give her a second look. Bai Rong was all smiles. Why so scared? Shouldn't you be happy to reunite with an old friend? I came here specifically to find her. You didn't like her in the Donghua, but felt she was more sympathetic as the series goes on. She grows on you. Since Shen Qiao couldn't see where she was precisely, he could only cup his hands in greeting in the direction of her voice. On what business does this maiden seek us out? Bai Rong pouted. Maiden? How dismally formal. My last name is Bai. I'm called Bai Rong. It's another name for the peony flower, so you can just call me Little Peony. As she spoke, she leapt from the wall and was in front of them in a flash. Bai Rong seemed more interested in Shen Qiao, even reaching out a hand to touch his face. Just before her fingertips reached him, Shen Qiao seemed to sense them and took 2 steps back. Bai Rong giggled and got straight to the point. You were both there last night. One of you read out the scroll while the other listened from beginning to end. So both of you must remember quite a bit of its contents. Now, I want to write down everything that was on the scroll, but there are some lines I just don't remember all that well. Hence, I need your help. As a reward, once we're finished, whether you desire riches or beauties, you'll get whatever you wish for. She drawled her final words into a sing-song tune, coquettish with a touch of flirtatiousness. It was enough to make any man's heart waver. Chen Gong's ears went hot, and he was about to agree when a hand on his shoulder pressed down hard. He came back to his senses and quickly started shaking his head like a rattledrum. I can't read or write! There you go. Murong! And Chen Gong. And then Shen Qiao. There we go. Now we can see everybody. She is really pretty, though. Like, same thing with Shen Qiao. Here. Let me see if I can get him better. There we go. Got his squinty eyes. Right? She's gorgeous. Slay queen, literally. Right? You've found the wrong people, added Shen Qiao. He can't read, and I'm blind. Last night, I just recited from the scroll. I didn't take in any of it. Once I was finished, I forgot what it said. I'm afraid we can't help you. Murong smiled gleefully. You're all panicky right now, so of course you can't remember. But once you come with me and give it some careful thought, perhaps you'll be able to recall a great deal. Can you really say no to such a pretty face? She didn't wait for an answer, reaching out to grab both of them straight away. Oh, thank you. I did them myself. I thought, why not do some sparkly orange nails? So, thank you. Part of that's because it's fun to have sparkly nails. The other part is because if you put sparkles on your nails, you can't see if you messed up the polish. It kind of just is like, oh, I smudged it. Just add some more sparkles. It'll be fine. So it's partially why I wear sparkly polish. But thank you. It's a fun color. I did them yesterday, so thank you. Alarm bells blared in Chen Gong's mind. His body wanted to run, but for some reason, when he saw her white and slender hand reach towards him, all the strength dropped out of him. Could only watch as that hand brushed his shoulder and his legs went weak. He collapsed onto the ground. Sparkles are always... Yay for Halloween nails! And yes, sparkles are always the answer. They add that little extra flair. They do really match the green wall. You're right. Shimei looks so excited. Is she about to kill someone again? So Shimei, literally junior martial sister, used by the speaker to address a female junior whom they share the same master or sect. Sparkles are amazing. I agree. A youthful face, extraordinarily beautiful, accompanied this voice that sounded so very... Oh, God, it's this guy. The man alighted from the wall soft as a feather, then smiled at Bai Rong. Her expression shifted a touch. You so rarely see your Shixian, he said. Isn't Shimei happy to see me? Reluctantly putting Shen Qiao and Chen Gong aside, Bai Rong focused her energies on dealing with the uninvited guest. What is Shixian saying? It just took me a moment to recover from the joy and surprise of seeing you again after so long. Right. Huo Shijing looked at her, the shadow of a smile upon his face. His gaze swept past Chen Gong and landed on Shen Qiao, regarding him with a deep interest. Such a handsome gentleman you have there. Since you're going to kill him anyway, Shimei, why not give me the skin of his face first? Then you can kill him. Oh, how many "oh, that guy" does the series have again? I think 3 may have been too conservative. Yeah, it's this guy. I'm gonna give at least 5 of ugh or oh, this guy. This is one of my big oh, this guy. Yeah. Bairong moved smoothly in front of Shen Qiao. Very funny, Shixian. I wasn't thinking of killing them. In fact, why is Shixian here? You couldn't have come all the way just to catch up with me? Yeah, he's gross. He's more than gross. I heard that Shimei had the opportunity of a lifetime last night. Since I happened to be passing through, I stopped by to check it out for myself. Why is stealing people's faces such a thing in Danmei? It's not just Danmei, it's actually just Chinese literature. It's one of those old things. I should have just bought the bottle and out. Just brought the bottle out instead of a glass. Yeah, peacock pages. Oh, just wait. There's a big oof. Oh God, this guy. In this book, later on, the author just likes very weird characters. Yeah. What are you playing at, Shixian? Your Shimei can't understand you at all. Huo Shijing gave her a slight snort. Last night, outside a temple on the outskirts of the city, the Li Hui Guild appeared with a scroll of the Shu Yang strategy, and you were right there on the scene. Word is, before Yan Wuxi destroyed the scroll, he made someone read it aloud. With Shimei's wits and intelligence, surely you wrote it down to hand over to our Shizun, yes? Yes, there's a huge reservoir of shape-shifting myths in most of East Asia. Yes. Bairong stuck out her tongue, pouting like a little girl. Considering how filial I am to him, of course something like this has to go to Shizun. Surely you didn't swoop in here to steal the credit from me once you heard the news. I'm afraid I can't let that happen. Here's a good idea. How about you give it to me for safekeeping, and we'll head back to hand it over to Shizun together. That way, we need not fear you losing it. Bairong laughed. Does Shixian take me for a fool? Huo Shijing also left. Distrusting your Shixian like this, it makes him so sad. These two martial siblings were laughing as they spoke, but each word concealed a knife, and both had their eyes on each other's openings and weaknesses. Bairong dared not relax for a moment. Even when she knew Shen Qiao was escaping with Chen Gong, she paid them no heed. All her attention was focused on Huo Shijing, afraid of falling to his ploy in a moment of carelessness. Huo Shijing raised an eyebrow. They've left. Isn't Shimei going to chase after them? Bairong was still smiling brightly. Shixian is more important to me. The words were spoken with deep, lingering affection, but in their hearts both of them knew it was for a lie. Knew it for a lie. I was like, wait a minute. Chen Gong didn't even know how Shen Qiao had pulled him up and into a run. He couldn't see well, and even with his bamboo cane, he still stumbled and tripped as he went. Chen Gong had no strength left in him and could only give directions as he was dragged along behind. After they'd run for over half an hour, Chen Gong finally said, panting, Stop! Stop! Stop running! I can't run any further! Shen Qiao slowed his steps, but the look on his face stayed just as severe. He walked in the direction of the nearest inn. Yeah. Chen Gong hastily asked, Shouldn't we leave the city? Leave the city right away and run. That way that demon woman can't catch us. They're probably expecting us to leave the city too. All the more reason we can't. The city is full of people, so it'll be difficult for them to find us. First, we'll stay at the inn for the night, then tomorrow we'll look for a chance to leave. With that man around, her attention will be off of us for a while. See, that's the smart thing to do. You go to the crowded areas. Don't be going into, like, the outskirts. That's where you get mugged. They entered the inn and asked for a room. Chen Gong noticed the heavy exhaustion on Shen Qiao's face, despite how briskly he'd just been walking. He remembered that Shen Qiao's body was much weaker than his own, and how he normally had to stop and gasp for air every few steps. Feeling a little bad for him, Chen Gong said, "I'll sleep on the floor tonight. You take the bed." Normally, Shen Qiao would humbly refuse, but now he was truly depleted. Ever since Yan Wuxi infused him with true qi and he'd overexerted his vision, his body had gone soft. Up until then, he'd been forcing himself to push through it, but now that he'd relaxed, his whole body felt unsteady and on the edge of collapse. Chen Gong was confused. They're martial siblings, Shixian and Shimei, so how come they're acting like enemies? That man was also kind of strange. His voice was so old, but his face was so young. Shen Qiao rubbed at his temples. That's because he used a technique called stolen sky and counterfeit sun. What's that mean, stolen sky and counterfeit sun? He thought to himself that the name sounded pretty imposing. It's a face-changing technique, said Shen Qiao. You skin off the person's face, then use a special technique to fuse it to your own. That way, you can maintain your youthful beauty for all eternity. Those two are both difficult characters to deal with. If it hadn't been for their bickering, we wouldn't have been able to escape today. How can there be a technique that horrible? Chen Gong blurted out. His hair was standing on end from fear. Shen Qiao couldn't force himself to keep going any longer. He simply lay down on his side, fully clothed. With a slight curl to his back and a small frown on his stark white face, he looked like a man on death's door. I mean, valid reaction, let's be real. When they'd first started traveling together, Chen Gong had been a little worried that Shen Qiao might collapse at any moment. Later, he realized that Shen Qiao just looked like that every day, and he became accustomed to it. Chronic illness, gang, rise up! Something occurred to Chen Gong, and he asked, Hey, didn't you say you can't remember anything? Then how did you know that guy used a face-changing technique? Oh, said Shen Qiao. Sometimes I can remember a little. The corner of Chen Gong's mouth twitched. Go to sleep. We need to wake up early tomorrow. Obviously, Shen Qiao wasn't willing to say more. He rolled over and put his back to him. There was nothing Chen Gong could do but lie down as well. That night, he had a nightmare. He dreamt that his face had been skinned off and replaced with the wrinkled countenance of an old man. When he looked in the mirror, he could no longer recognize himself. In the end, he woke with a start from the sheer terror of it. Then he looked around and saw the sun had already risen and that the bed was completely empty. Shen Qiao was gone. Shocked, Chen Gong leapt up, his thoughts spiraling. When he touched the bed, he found no residual warmth, and right as he was struggling with whether or not to dash out and search for him, Shen Qiao pushed open the door and walked in. Chen Gong breathed a sigh of relief. Where'd you go? Although he'd never admit it, over the course of their travels together, Chen Gong had gotten used to having Shen Qiao around. An outside observer might think that Shen Qiao's blindness and poor health was an inconvenience to Chen Gong, who'd have to help him out all the time. But in truth, it was Chen Gong who relied on Shen Qiao for many things. It was thanks to Shen Qiao that they'd been spared many detours. Shen Qiao closed the door. Softly, he said, Let's part ways today. Chen Gong froze. Then he jumped to his feet. Why? Once Bai Rong and her Shixian have finished arguing with each other, there's a chance they'll come looking for us. As for the Liu He sect, Liu He guild, although I dissuaded them when they wanted us to travel together, they may very well regret it. He paused, then sighed. There's also that Murong Qin. He's likely a martial expert who belongs to the imperial court. It would be easy for him to mobilize government forces to track us down. Although one of us is blind and the other illiterate, the temptation presented by the Zhuyang strategy scroll is still irresistible. Many people spend their entire lives in tireless pursuit of it and end up empty-handed, and we were able to listen to its contents. Compared to everyone else who was there, we're the softest of persimmons, the weakest and easiest target. Any person from the Jianghu could end our lives. Then, what do we do? Chen Gong stammered. We didn't mean to listen. Who would want to listen to something that convoluted? Oh, Tails told in the dark. Hello. Welcome. An ordinary man bears no sins, but holding a precious stone will cast him as a sinner. Last night they saw us together, so that's the impression they received. Today, for the sake of our safety, we must go our separate ways. Chen Gong was at a loss for a moment. Finally, he came to see that it was a hopeless problem and that this was the only solution. If it came down to a fight, they could be knocked to the ground by a single palm strike. A sense of helplessness welled up inside him, then twisted into an even deeper despair. Chen Gong hated his own powerlessness, but there was nothing he could do. So we're a little bit into it already. I don't know if you have listened to the other the other two lives for this, but we had basically a kung fu fight in a temple over a Zhuyang scroll, which we've been talking about, which is one of 5 great scrolls that basically help produce some of the greatest martial artists. And they Shen Qiao was forced to read it in front of all these masters, and then Yan Wuxi burned it. And so this is the night after they're at an inn, and they're about to go their separate ways because they're like, it'll be harder to find us. We'll present less of a target. If we stick together, we'll be in more trouble. We need to leave now. So that's basically where we're at right now. But yeah. I hope that helped. Also, I hope you're having a good day. Welcome. I know I said it before, but I'm excited that you're here. It's your first live. Very well, he said reluctantly and looked at Shen Qiao. But can you make it on your own? Of course. Shen Qiao smiled. Why not? Didn't you see me doing well on my own back in Funing County? After some thought, Chen Gong conceded, but his mood didn't lift at all. Then, after we leave the city, will we ever see each other again? That's up to fate, said Shen Qiao. Will you still go to the Liu He guild? Chen Gong shook his head. He was very certain. That deputy leader already recognizes me. If I go to the Liu He guild, I'll just be walking myself into a trap. Everyone knows that I've heard the contents of that stupid scroll, so they'll definitely try to pry something out of me. Then where will you go? Chen Gong was depressed. I'll take things one step at a time. Maybe when I run out of money, I'll settle down right then and there. In the end, I gotta eat. The Liu He Guild is a major organization after all, so their threshold for entry is high. Even if you manage to get in, they might not treat you well. Why not seek out a small guild that's upright and just? With your intelligence, I'm sure you'll find success very quickly. Whatever. I just don't want to head south anymore. I want to go north instead, to go check out Yicheng. I've heard that it's really booming, so there should be a lot of chances to get ahead. Chen Gong said this without much enthusiasm. He didn't have many belongings to pack. All he had with him were 2 old pieces of clothing. Once he'd fastened his sack, he could leave. Before he did, he looked back and saw Shen Qiao sitting there quietly, bamboo cane in front of him. Although his eyes lacked any life, his face was turned in Chen Gong's direction, as if to see him off. For some reason, Chen Gong felt a lump in his throat. You take care. Shen Qiao nodded. You as well. They were 2 people who'd met by chance, like drifting duckweed. Fate ordained that they'd travel together, and now, as fate would have it, they were parting ways. It was a remarkably common situation, but the teenage Chen Gong had not yet learned to take such things in stride. Shortly after Chen Gong left, Shen Qiao packed his clothes and prepared to leave the city. He had picked the south gate so as to not bump into Chen Gong. The 2 of them going their separate ways made each one less of a target, but Shen Qiao had other reasons as well. On the way out of the city, Chen Gong was in a constant state of apprehension. Only when he saw that no one had tailed him or headed him off was his mind finally put at ease. Huai Providence was close to Shao and was frequented by merchants traveling back and forth from one to the other. During the day, people even gathered outside the city gates picking through the wares for sale, their shouts rising and falling in turn, making for quite a lively scene. Initially, Chen Gong had been so preoccupied with avoiding these powerful characters that he hadn't had time to give his surroundings a close look. Now that he found himself in a busy market, teenage youth's love of watching the hustle and bustle reared up again. But he didn't dare to wander about too much. After a quick look around and buying 2 steaming pieces of flatbread for the road, fresh off the stove, he followed the main road north. About 100 or so steps, he heard a stampede of horses' hooves, interspersed with the sounds of screaming and crying. Chen Gong quickly turned around and saw several people charging out from the city at full speed, running in his direction. Behind him followed a large troop of men atop horses, armed with bows and arrows, galloping wildly. He didn't know what was going on and stood there blankly for a moment, watching as all these people drew closer and closer. The men on horseback had already drawn their bows and nocked their arrows, preparing to shoot in his direction. Seeing that, Chen Gong was scared out of his stupor and instinctively began running as well, his mind still in a muddle, bewildered that such a scene could suddenly pop up when everything had been perfectly fine just a moment before. He wasn't the only one. The commoners at the city gates were also in complete chaos, fleeing in all directions, screaming over and over again in alarm. Chen Gong dared not look back. He sprinted forward like his life was on the line. His luck was seriously abysmal, he thought to himself. Things like this happened wherever he went. After he'd been running for a while, there came the sound of an arrow whizzing through the air. It whizzed past Chen Gong's ear and sliced into the thick brush right in front of him. He went weak in the knees and almost fell straight down onto his face. Yeah, here's another one of those oh no men. Yep, I agree, Truffle. From behind him came intermittent screams and sounds of people falling, along with the distant drifting laughter of the men on horseback who sounded very pleased. You even heard someone fawning. The commandery prince is truly a great archer. This must be what they mean by piercing a willow leaf from 100 paces, and not a single shot missed. The red flag parade. It's a great way to put it, and you're not wrong, Truffle. So the commandery prince is a noble title that could be conferred to both members of the royal family or trusted officials. They ruled over commanderies, which were a type of administrative region similar to countries. The laughter stopped abruptly as this man responsible abruptly raised his voice. The fastest runner in the front there. Don't target him, any of you. He's mine. Who could run faster than Chen Gong? No one! All of a sudden, he understood what was going on. Most dignitaries loved hunting, but some were especially perverse. What they loved to hunt weren't animals but live people. They'd release prisoners or slaves, command them to run with all their might, and shoot arrows at them with no regard for whether they lived or died. They called it human hunting. It's also not sex exclusive. There were commandery princesses, though I don't think they had the same power. That's right. It was also less common, though. Chen Gong had only heard about it after he left Funing country. At the time, he found it outlandish and clicked his tongue at the idea. But now that it was actually happening to him, exactly like a tale from the storyteller, it wasn't amusing at the slightest. Why would you be amused by that anyway? Like, that's not amusing at all. That's horrible. Knowing now that the stories were true, his heart pounded like a drum. He was about to thump out of his chest. All of a sudden, Chen Gong stopped and turned around. Prostrating himself on the ground, he begged loudly, "Please have mercy, Your Excellency! Please have mercy! I'm not prey, much less a prisoner or a slave. I'm a good citizen." "So what? If this prince wishes to kill you, he can." The man at the head of the hunting party laughed, utterly unconcerned. They got a good look at Chen Gong, though. He made a sound of surprise. "You, raise your head so I can see you." Steeling himself, Chen Gong looked up, fear and dread written all over his face. But Mu Tipo was amused by what he saw. "Your complexion's a little dark, but it's still quite delicate, and your limbs look supple, too. If I were to spare your life, what would you give me in return?" Chen Gong was still in a muddle. This lowly commoner is willing to be a beast of burden for your esteemed self, or is happy to be banished by your excellency." Tipo chuckled. "Very well. Someone come and take him back and clean him for me." Chen Gong had left home at a young age and was by no means ignorant of the ways of the world. When he saw how the gathered crowd looked at him with strange expressions and put it together with what the man had said, he figured it out. He'd been taken as a male concubine. Male concubines weren't uncommon in Qi, especially in the upper echelons of nobility, as the few generations of Qi's emperors had taken both men and women as partners. Since subordinates followed their leader's example, the lower levels of the nobles became quite interested in homosexuality as well. Chen Gong wasn't aware that he'd caught the eye of the most famous official and most favored of the Emperor of Qi himself, but nonetheless, he felt his soul was about to flee in terror. He cowed out and exclaimed, "Spare me, Your Excellency! There's nothing charming about me! I don't want to go back with you!" "Oh, it's not the best thing to say to those in power that are power mad." Wu Tibo's expression went dark. Chen Gong's heart thudded in his chest. He'd picked up a couple of moves from Shen Qiao, but here he stood against a large troop of armed men on horses, their eyes ablaze. His rough, scanty martial arts would be completely useless. He'd probably be pierced through by 10,000 arrows before he took one step. Once, Chen Gong had thought himself fearless. At this moment, he felt childish and ridiculous. He hadn't been afraid before because he was always in situations he knew how to handle. But now, he was terrified. Because when it came to these influential bigwigs before him, who he knew nothing of, Chen Gong didn't need to know who they were exactly to understand that he absolutely must not provoke them. An attendant laughed from the sidelines. "Commandery Prince, this lowly one has never seen someone so tactless before." Another person echoed him. "Truly, This boy isn't even especially beautiful. It's his great fortune that the commandery prince took a liking to him, yet he still has the gall to refuse. He might as well be shot dead on the spot. Mutipo's eyes narrowed, and he slowly raised the bow and arrow in his hand. Your Excellency, please allow this lowly one to explain. Chen Gong's mind buzzed, then abruptly went blank. With no time to think it through, he blurted out, This lowly one lacks charm, and is unworthy of such high regard from your Excellency. But this lowly one knows! He knows a man! That man is so much better looking than I am. No, he's better looking than all these people your Excellency has with you combined. All those falling behind Mutipo were beautiful men. When they heard Chen Gong, they burst into laughter, ridiculing him for being rustic and unworldly. Look at this hillbilly, and he actually thinks he's seen a man more beautiful than us? Mutipo didn't speak. He already had a white-plumed arrow in his hand. He seemed ready to nock it and shoot. Chen Gong was drenched in cold sweat. This was a critical life-and-death moment. He couldn't afford to have any second thoughts. He's right here in the city, he said loudly. We only just parted ways. If your Excellency doesn't believe me, I can take you to him. He's a natural beauty, but his eyes don't work so well. He's a blind man, so I'm afraid that your Excellency will find him unsatisfactory. When he heard Chen Gong say the mind was blind, Mutipo finally took a little interest. Come to think of it, I've never played with a blind man before, he said. I suppose that means when I tie him to the bed, I won't have to blindfold him. His frivolous tone drew a wave of low, sinister laughter. All these people are so fucked up. God, we're gonna do trigger warning, like right here for creepy, unhinged, like even just hints of SA. Like this guy's giving off bad touch, red flag, everything. If you are triggered by that, like it's gonna be a rough time. Like, because this is tiptoeing towards those lines. Be kind to yourself. This is just bad touch, man. Hints. I can put a note where it's like, this is bad touch. Like, bad touch moments. Or like red flag moments, I guess is more close. Yeah. Red flag moment. I'm going to start it now at 142. Yeah. Like, just because this could be... Yeah. Just because I want people to be safe. The whole I'm getting more turned on because he's blind is ick and wrong. Not that you can't be hot and blind. I'm not saying that, but the way that he's implying it is wrong. Now Chen Gong saw just how loathsome these men were, but he'd already said what he'd said, and it was too late for regrets. He thought to himself, Shen Qiao was more skilled than him, so perhaps he'd be able to beat these people back. Or perhaps, by the time they got there, Shen Qiao would have left already. This chaotic jumble flashed through his mind as he stayed frozen in place, unmoving. An attendant rode up to him, chin held high. Hurry up and take us there! Chen Gong grit his teeth. Your Excellency, in truth, the man is in poor health, even though he's good-looking. I'm afraid it will spoil your mood. Isn't that even better? Mutipo said blithely. A sickly man can be enjoyable in his own way. If he dies while I'm playing with him, it'd be because of his poor health. It can't be blamed on me. But if you don't want to lead us to him, you can be his substitute. You're healthy, so it'd be fine no matter how I play with you. I'll strip you bare and let my pet wolf dogs play with you. How about that? Oh, yeah. Bestiality warning, right there. They just happen to be in heat now, and I was worried that I wouldn't be able to find mates for them. There you go, K-moment. There's your blatant. Chen Gong's eyes went wide. He never imagined that the world would have such cruel and savage people in it. Mutipo's threats left him trembling all over, and he could no longer muster up the will to resist. Don't blame me, Shen Qiao. I was forced to, he thought to himself. Yep, K-moment. Ew. Mm-hmm. Chen Gong led the large troop of men on horseback into the city. Yeah. When they arrived at the inn, only a half day had passed since he'd left. The innkeeper still remembered him. When he saw that Chen Gong had returned and saw who he was with, he dared not ignore the boy and rushed to welcome him. This is... Chen Gong couldn't help but glance back at Mutipo, who was frowning and covering his nose at the sight of the inn's humble interior. He sent a few attendants inside with Chen Gong to keep an eye on him. The man who stayed with me, is he still here? Chen Gong motioned at his eyes. His eyes aren't very good, and he has a bamboo cane. Yes, he's here, the innkeeper quickly replied. He's still in the room and hasn't come down. Chen Gong's heart filled with joy, swiftly followed by a small wave of guilt. But the guilty feeling didn't last long before it was interrupted. You're such an asshole, Chen Gong. Mutipo's attendant frowned. What are you dawdling for? He yelled. Take us up there. The man was coated in powder, and the scent of something pretentious and gaudy seemed to waft from him. Chen Gong didn't even want to look at him more than once, but he had no way to defy his words. He had no choice but to bring everyone up the stairs, although he went very slowly. Part of him hoped that Shen Qiao had in fact left, but another part of him hoped that he was still there. Chen Gong led the group upstairs and knocked. After 3 knocks, a familiar voice came from inside. Who is it? Chen Gong couldn't have said what he felt in that moment. He swallowed, then said, It's me. Chen Gong, why did you return? Quickly, come in. Shen Qiao was a little surprised, but his voice was as calm as ever. Full of conflicting emotions, Chen Gong felt the guilt rise in him again. Why aren't you going in? Impatient, Mutipo's attendant gave him a hard shove. Chen Gong stumbled forward, ramming the door open along the way. Shen Qiao was sitting by the window with his face turned slightly towards it, as if enjoying the scenery outside. But Chen Gong knew that since that night at the temple, Shen Qiao hadn't been able to see anything at all. Pah! So this is your so-called beauty? He's not much... The attendant's words ground to a halt when Shen Qiao turned his head towards them, and it became difficult to continue. Mutipo had weighted himself into impatience and decided to come upstairs personally. His eyes lit up when he saw Shen Qiao. Mutipo came from a poor background, but then his mother gained influence while he himself ended up close friends with the emperor, and through these associations he was able to live a life of extravagance. His origins meant he placed a great deal of importance on dress. He wouldn't let anyone in his sights whose clothes and adornments lacked the proper splendor. Why do you hunt poor people? Huh? You're contradicting yourself. Shen Qiao's clothes were of plain material, and his hair was pulled into a simple bun. He didn't even have a jade hairpin. It was only held in place by a strip of sky blue ribbon, the same color as his clothing. And yet, Mutipo couldn't tear his eyes away from him. Those rough garments did nothing to conceal Shen Qiao's overwhelming beauty. When Shen Qiao turned his face over to him, expressionless, Mutipo's mouth went dry. He could barely restrain himself from going right up and pushing him down, ripping open those clothes and ravaging him. Here's where the warning comes in. Chen Gong, whom did you bring here with you? When he heard that gently bewildered voice, Mu Tipo's excitement swelled. What would this man taste like, he wondered, with his brows pinched and crying out. Ugh. Mu Tipo had even already decided to hold this man here in Huai province first, until he played with him enough. Then he'd send him to Emperor Gao Wei of Qi. Gao Wei was like him. He always loved playing with unusual things. If Mu Tipo sent this blind beauty to him, the emperor would undoubtedly be very pleased. What is your name? He asked Shen Qiao. Shen Qiao knit his brows but did not answer. He only said, Chen Gong. Okay, so I'm going to continue the warning for the next chapter because this character is still on screen. 1 second. I'm going to take a sip and then I'll mark down the chapter. I know. We're going from Beloved Pet Fish, which is like one of the most fluffy, happiest stories, right over to Thousand Autumns, which is definitely a very much about turn for theme and rating. So I totally get if this book is not anyone's flavor. It is definitely more of the rough and dark Don Mays. I mean, not Husky and Shizun level, but I get if people don't want to read. All right, 151. Or 14 is 151, yes. Okay. Okay. All right, chapter 14, Betrayal. Chen Gong knew that Shen Qiao couldn't see him, but he still shrank from his line of sight. Mu Tipo chortled at this. Yeah, I'm gonna leave for this part. Night, Esper Lady. I'll post when the warning's gone, but I don't blame you for leaving. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely noticing the pieces taken out of the anime. See you next time, Esper Lady. Chen Gong told me that there was a beauty here. 100 times more beautiful than all my men. At first, I didn't believe him. I thought this kid hadn't seen enough of the world and was only spewing nonsense. So I came with him to take a look. But now that I've seen you, I know he wasn't exaggerating. Shen Qiao was silent, his expression blank. Mu Tipo thought nothing of his reaction. I am the prince of Chengyang Commandery, Mu Tipo. I am greatly in his majesty's favor these days. If you're willing to come with me, from now on you'll receive only the best of food and apparel. You'll be honored and live in splendor. You needn't stay in such a crude place. Only then did Shen Qiao sigh. Chen Gong, did you tell him where I was? Chen Gong was miserable, but he forged ahead. I had no choice. If I didn't bring him here, I'd have to go work as a beast of burden for Commandery Prince Mu. Shen Qiao shook his head. Then you should ask this Prince of Chengyang Commandery whether he's willing to let you go. Mu Tipo laughed. That's right, though this kid can't compare to even one finger of your hand. But he's whole, and he's healthy, and his mind's agile. His face isn't bad either. Good enough to be a servant. Chen Gong was stunned. You said you'd let me go! Mu Tipo paid the boy no heed at all. At the wave of his hand, his attendant stepped forward and grabbed Chen Gong. Meanwhile, Mu Tipo approached Shen Qiao. Perhaps sensing his approach, Shen Qiao finally stood, supporting himself with the edge of the table. It almost looked as if he was about to bow to the commandery prince in greeting. A smile tugged up at the corner of Mu Tipo's mouth. All was going as expected. In the face of power and influence, no one could escape either fear or envy. The fearful trembled in trepidation, while the envious were drawn as moths to a flame. Even if a man seemed reluctant now, he would soon become accustomed to the riches and wealth, the allure of women, and even come to love them. Even if he wanted out someday, at that point, it wouldn't be up to him. Oh, so many red flags. What is your name? Said Mu Tipo. My name is Shen Qiao. Qiao as in Da Qiao and Xiao Qiao, a rather fitting name. Refers to the two Qiaos of Jiangdong, famed for their extraordinary beauty. The Da and the Xiao prefixes here denote the elder and younger sister respectfully. Qiao, as in mountain peak. Mu Tipo raised an eyebrow and smiled. As in the 100 gods does he placate, the peaks and rivers all come partake. This Qiao is a little harsh, not a fitting name for a beauty. Shen Qiao did not return his smile. I think it's a good name. Fine, fine, as long as you like it. Do you have a courtesy name? Or shall I call you Xiao Qiao, Ah Qiao? Oh, better not call him Ah Qiao. Mu Tipo was smiling as he spoke, his tone doting and gracious. Shen Qiao bent to pick up the bamboo cane. As he did, his collar drooped to reveal a glimpse of his neck, snow white and slender, enough to elicit fanciful thoughts. An itch spread in Mu Tipo's heart. He couldn't resist reaching out to touch him. He wanted to pull this man into his arms, to draw them intimately together. Shen Qiao's body temperature was on the low side, and he'd lost weight due to his illness. When Mu Tipo grasped his wrist, he could feel the bones protruding beneath his thin skin. On any other day, given Mu Tipo's high standards for beauties, he'd have written Shen Qiao off, saying he felt too bony to hold. But today, Mu Tipo's heart jolted with eager impatience. Ah, Qiao, that was all he said. And that was all he had time to say. For just then, Mu Tipo felt a pain in his chest. Yes. He looked down. The bamboo cane had somehow gotten in front of him and jabbed right into the spot above his heart. Mu Tipo reacted quickly. After the pain, he leaned his torso back smoothly, one of his hands moving to grab the cane, while the other struck out at Shen Qiao. He wasn't a forgiving person, and that this fragile, harmless-looking beauty had the cheek to attack him unawares made him all the more furious. The blow he struck was merciless. Mu Tipo was also a martial artist. Even though his level was only second or third rate, if he really hit Shen Qiao with a palm strike, it would seriously injure him, if not kill him outright. However, in an unexpected turn of events, the cane Mu Tipo had gripped so securely slipped nimbly out of his hand and out of his control. Not only that, his striking hand failed to connect. This man he'd thought a sickly beauty had evaded the attack using extraordinary footwork and even countered it by hitting Mu Tipo's waist with his cane. Shen Qiao had no internal energy, so he couldn't seriously injure Mu Tipo, but the blow caught him right at the weakest point in his ribs. Ooh. I mean, he deserves it, but ouch. Taken by surprise, Mu Tipo didn't use his true qi to shield himself, so the hit was painful. So painful that tears came to his eyes. He cried out involuntarily and quickly stepped away. Only then did his retinue of attendants pull themselves together. Some came forward to support Mu Tipo, while others swarmed around Shen Qiao, ready to take him down. Mu Tipo never thought he'd suffer such humiliation. His face grew stormy, dark, and violent. He glared viciously at Shen Qiao, naked rage shining in his eyes. He'd already thought up hundreds of ways to torture him. Capture him alive! The attendants Mu Tipo brought with him didn't lack for skill. Secure in their superior numbers, they weren't taking this blind, sickly man seriously at all. but each and every one of them was met with defeat. With just one bamboo cane, he held them all at bay. That wasn't all. Shen Qiao seemed to know that Mu Tipo's party was large in number, for he wasted no time. His attacks became increasingly ruthless. His face, normally so delicate, froze over with a layer of cold severity. One man tried to circle around and seize him from behind. He was immediately smacked away by the cane, sent staggering back several paces. Merciless, Shen Qiao followed up by shoving him straight out the window. Man, it works. Screams drifted up from 2 floors down. The crowd of men grew fearful. For a moment, they forgot to move. Anyone else want to try? Shen Qiao's face was inscrutable as he seemed to watch them. With a light tap, he set the end of his cane onto the floor and stood, firm and unmovable. Though his complexion was still pale, a faint, foreboding chill had settled over it. Chen Gong was dumbfounded. When he'd watched Shen Qiao beat back the beggars, they'd still been in the broken-down temple. He'd known then that Shen Qiao had probably been a martial expert, back before he lost his memory and fell ill. But after that, he'd seen the likes of Yan Wuxi and Xu Ting fight, and it was like his view had broadened. He didn't think Shen Qiao was particularly powerful anymore. Yeah, what a badass, right, Peacock Pages? Until just then, Chen Gong thought he'd glimpsed many of the secrets this man held. But it seemed he was still in the dark, completely clueless. Mu Tipo felt humiliated. He was furious with Shen Qiao, and he was frustrated by him. One moment he wanted to kill the man, but the next he felt like killing him wouldn't be enough, that he had to catch him alive, take him away, do many things to him 8 or 10 times, and then toss him to his subordinates and let them play with him until he died. Only then would the rage in his heart be relieved. He looked left and right, seeing the hesitation on everyone's face and their reluctance to move. There's so many of you, and you can't defeat one blind man? If nothing else, you can crush him to death with the weight of your bodies, he cursed. Still, his men hesitated, mainly because they'd been cowed by the fight and were all nursing some injury or another. None of them had thought that Shen Qiao could use a bamboo cane to do such damage. Shen Qiao's expression was indifferent. He stood there without speaking and seemed to be waiting for them to either leave or continue their provocations. Tipo sneered. You didn't use any internal energy. You won't be able to hold on for long with only clever tricks. My men have surrounded the inn. If you're sensible, you'll kneel down obediently and beg for mercy. I might still give you a way out. Otherwise what? Asked Shen Qiao. Mu Tipo's face turned savage. Otherwise. Before he could finish speaking, he saw Shen Qiao's palm strike out sideways. They were shocked. They all thought Shen Qiao had no internal energy. His strike whipped up an air current, blowing the cabinet right over. Startled, they were forced to evade. Mu Tipo was right nearby the cabinet, and he had nowhere to retreat, but could only dodge to the side. Shen Qiao took advantage of his movement to strike Mu Tipo in the back. Mu Tipo immediately counterattacked, but he'd fallen right into Shen Qiao's trap. With a furl of his sleeve, Shen Qiao snagged his wrist and pulled Mu Tipo to the window. He wrapped his other hand around the commandery prince's throat. When the men saw this, they dared not move. Mu Tipo was appalled by the power in this thin, bony wrist. It choked him, squeezing him until he couldn't breathe, and the other hand clamped hard over his gate of life, so he was too afraid to use his true qi. So it's a vital acupoint located on the small of one's back between the kidneys, serving as the source of one's life force and true qi. It's probably like Danshin in like Modao Zushi. That's what it seems like to me. I might be wrong. If you do this, you'll, he gasped and coughed, only bring about your death. After playing the hawk for so long, Mu Tipo never thought he'd have his eyes pecked out by a true raptor. He was half mad with rage, but too afraid to make any sudden movements. But who could have anticipated it? Despite Shen Qiao's appearance, he still made complete fools out of all of them. Whether or not it'll bring about my death, I do not know. But I do know that if you don't let me leave here today, you'll die first. Shen Qiao's voice was calm and quiet, not a spark of anger in it at all. Occasionally, it was even broken by a slight cough. In exchange for my own insignificant life, I'd take the life of your excellency. That's a fantastic deal. How on earth had he judged so poorly? Mutipo had actually thought this man harmless and weak. With no way out, Mutipo had no choice but to tell his glaring attendants to stand down. Go outside and tell them all to withdraw. Shen Qiao sighed. If only the commandery prince had been so cooperative earlier. Go, and please escort me outside the city, then call a carriage for me. What's the use of a carriage when you're blind? Mutipo sneered. Or do you want me to send you a coachman too? Shen Qiao mused over this. Commandery Prince Mu has a good point. Please accompany me for some time. I'm sure the coachman wouldn't dare disobey. Got a point. Mutipo fumed. And so they headed out together, and Mutipo was forced into the carriage. With the commandery prince present, the coachman dared not question. The carriage headed west, traveling for 2 days and a night until they approached the border with northern Shao. Once he was sure Mutipo's entourage couldn't catch up with them, Shen Qiao finally let the coachman leave with the carriage. Then, with Mutipo as his hostage, he entered an inn close to the border in Yanshao country. He knocked the prince out, castrated him to prevent him from harming others in the future, then tossed him into a random room at the inn. Only when all this was done did Shen Qiao leave alone. So I think that's the end of our warning. It's a pretty final end to the warning. 206:45. 6:45. I mean, Shen Qiao don't play. Like, he may be weak and frail, but he doesn't take prisoners, man. Once outside the inn, he headed briskly in the direction of the city gates. He only made it a couple of steps before he was forced to stop. He sought out an out-of-the-way deserted alley corner and leaned against the wall. He was spent, exhausted, and couldn't hold himself up any longer. Bending over at the waist, he coughed up a large mouthful of blood. From beside him came the mocking sound of a laugh. Shen Qiao didn't need to look up to know who it was. He wiped away the blood from the corner of his mouth with a sleeve, then simply slid down the wall and sat. At some point, a man in blue had appeared. His face was handsome, his demeanor imperious. At the corner of his narrow eyes were a fine smattering of delicate lines that only served to lend him an inexpressible charm. Yan Wuxi stood with his hands clasped behind him. At the sight of Shen Qiao's pale face, like a lamp that had run out of oil, he clicked his tongue. Even though you parted ways with Chen Gong for his own safety, in the end your good intentions were met with betrayal. That Chen lad didn't want to end up Mutipo's exclusive property, and so he sold you out. Well, how does it feel playing the good guy? Shen Qiao's chest was boiling over with nausea. He covered his mouth, sorely wishing to cough up more giant mouthfuls of blood. Maybe that would bring him relief. You're wrong. That night at Chu Yun Temple, I was the one who read the scroll. And I'm the one who's literate, not Chen Gong. Even if he had an extraordinary memory, good enough to memorize every line, he'd only know the words, not their meaning. If the Liu He Guild wanted to seek us out, they'd only target me. I parted ways with him so I wouldn't get him tangled in my problems. If he met some misfortune because of me, my conscience wouldn't be able to bear it. After this long speech, his strength was flagging, forcing him to pause. He gasped down a couple of breaths, then continued. I can't predict the future. I couldn't have known he'd encounter Mutipo, and couldn't have known that he'd bring trouble to my door in order to save himself. But even if I had known, I couldn't take it out on him. Not with a clean conscience. Well, damn. All right. So, I might just mark that section as like red flag / bad, like red flag moments. I might not mark chapter 14 just because I'm not sure how that'll mess with the timestamps. Like that whole part could potentially be triggering for someone. So I'm thinking I might mark it like essay allegations and all that. Truffle, we have 2 more chapters left, but 15 and 16 will be marked. So no worries there. Have a good night. Yeah, Yan Wuxi comes after the red flags. See you next time, Truffle. I will mark down chapter 15 though. 211. Okay. Chapter 15. Meeting Yan Wuxi again. Yan Wuxi was so angry he had to laugh. Sect leader Shen's heart is truly as vast as the ocean. It's a pity that not everyone on your Xuandu mountain feels the same. Otherwise, how could they allow Kunyi to knock the great Qi Finggui's disciple off a cliff? Shen Qiao shook his head but didn't speak. His memory was now blurry and fragmented. He could remember some things, but not others. As he was unclear on the details of the fight and his fall, there wasn't much he could say. But Yan Wuxi, without warning, lifted his palm and struck at him. It wasn't the light strike of a child's play attack. It was solid, using a third of his martial power. Given the gulf between their current strength, forget 3/10 of Yan Wuxi's power, even 1/10 would leave Shen Qiao helpless to withstand it. Anyone watching would think Yan Wuxi was trying to kill him, and that Shen Qiao had no chance of escape. Shen Qiao's breathing became ragged, and a glob of blood surged to the back of his throat, but he forcefully held it down. Yan Wuxi's true qi was just like him. It raged towards him like the fierce and unyielding flow of a river, almost substantial in its might. And in the midst of this desperate moment, with his life hanging in the balance, his heart actually calmed, and an exquisite, weightless feeling came over him. The same darkness remained behind Shen Qiao's eyes, but beyond that darkness a massive and sweeping river of stars burst into existence. The universe is fathomless, the heavens and earth vast. From time immemorial, the course of nature has run eternal, and amidst all this, human beings are impossibly small. If I wish to become one with heaven, ascending to godhood and returning to the void, then the rivers and mountains, the sun and moon, the heavens, the clouds, all of them would be me. There'd be no boundaries between all that exists in the world and me. That was what Shen Qiao felt in that moment. He couldn't tell if it was his fragmented memories revealing themselves, or if reading the Zhu Yang strategy scroll had left it deeply engraved upon his heart. Along with the familiar words that floated to the surface of his mind, within his heart was a phenomenon like moonlight seeping through leaves, like a faint glow blooming into radiance, ethereal, flawlessly clear. The true qi, long stagnant and lost, began to trickle faintly through his limbs and bones, delicate, boundless, and unending. Yan Wuxi's palm strike crashed down heavily as a mountain and swift as a whirling gale. No ordinary person could follow it with the naked eye, but Shen Qiao saw everything clearly. Behind him was the wall. There was nowhere to dodge. So he chose to meet it head on. With his frail and sickly body, he stood against 3/10 of Yan Wuxi's strength. Yan Wuxi had fought both Qi Fengwei and Qiu Yu Wang to a standstill, and they were the world's top martial artists and the grandmasters of their generation. Needless to say, he was terrifyingly strong. Forget about Shen Qiao, even Murong Qin, the emperor of Qi's #1 expert, would be on shaky ground if he faced 3/10 of Yan Wushi's strength. And yet, Shen Qiao managed to withstand him. He wasn't smashed flat against the wall, and he didn't cough up blood and die. His face was so pale it was almost transparent, but his feet moved not even half an inch. The sleeves of his robe billowed high from the impact of qi, and even the ribbon on his head came undone, his hair scattered down as it fluttered wildly. The blast of qi met, one strong and one weak, but for a moment the weaker one held. Yan Wuxi raised his eyebrows just a bit, but he showed little surprise. Instead, his expression said that he'd expected this. Xuandu Mountain's cultivation methods focus on spiritual stillness and non-interference, on standing aloof from worldly affairs. Meet what's strength with strength and what's soft with softness. Once the union is flawless and complete, the will of heaven shall become as clear as water. The words flashed swiftly through Shen Qiao's mind. But then he realized that his potential being released had little to do with Xuandu Mountain, and more to do with the fact that the true qi he was emitting showed faint signs of intermingling with Yan Wuxi's. Oh. As the two billows of true qi confronted each other, they also influenced each other. It was evident that they shared a common source. But ultimately, this difference in strength was too vast. Yan Wuxi barely needed to push any harder. Only a drop more pressure, and Shen Qiao was completely unable to withstand it. His complexion turned yellow, and blood spurted from his mouth again. But just then, Yan Wuxi withdrew his hand. So it's true. Keenly interested, he said, I've suspected it since I felt your pulse. You've already cultivated using the Zhuyang strategy scroll at Xuandu Mountain. Qi Fengwei passed it down to you, didn't he? Shen Qiao could only hear faint buzzing in his ears. Yan Wuxi's voice seemed to come from across a great distance, beyond the endless horizon. He slid down the wall, falling to the ground in a heap. So that night at Chuyun Temple, he said, you deliberately made me recite the scroll? Intermingling qi is very gay. That's also why I was like, it sounds a lot like dual cultivating, which is super, super gay. Indeed, said Yan Wuxi. The Zhuyang strategy is composed of 5 volumes. The volume of the Lost Soul is at Xuandu Mountain, and since you are Qi Fengwei's successor, you must have cultivated with it. Otherwise, you'd be lucky simply surviving your fall from Banbu Peak. Your body wouldn't have retained a speck of vitality, let alone allowed you to gradually recover your vision in martial arts. Didn't you think it extraordinary? Your body remembers the Zhuyang strategy you trained with, even though you lack the memory of it for the moment. That thread of true qi remains a part of you, and it's slowly helping you recuperate. That night I made you recite the volume of Deluded Thought because I wanted to use it to simulate your memories. I wanted to see whether you could combine that scroll and the one you've already trained with and integrate the contents of both volumes. Shen Qiao had only a wisp of breath within him. This humble Shen is only a cripple. Why would sect leader Yan spend so much effort on me? Yan Wuxi smiled slyly. The appearance of a volume of Deluded Thought drew many factions out to fight for it. But sadly, I destroyed the original at Chuyun Temple, so only those who were present could hear it. Once they return to their sects, they'll inevitably must write down what they heard. And in order to confound others, they'll also be certain to mix in some falsehoods and release a few extra versions. All factions will fight over them. There are many sects that couldn't make it there that night, and once they hear the news, how can they not act? They'll employ every possible method and scheme to get their hands on a real copy of the scroll. And so there will rise conflict after conflict, both hidden and overt. Don't you find it incredibly interesting? Yep, he's one of those let the world burn. Shen Qiao closed his eyes. How does this benefit you? Of course there are benefits, said Yan Wuxi. But they have nothing to do with you, so you needn't worry. All you need to know is that you have also greatly benefited from this incident. After all, in this world, anyone who can get a glimpse of any volume is already enormously fortunate. There are very few who come by multiple volumes like you have. Continue your training, and it might be possible to return to your old level. So, shouldn't you show me some gratitude? Sect leader Yan. Yan Wuxi gripped Shen Qiao's chin and forced him to raise his head. Didn't you call me Shizun before? Why such a quick change? I want, Shen Qiao murmured, his words somewhat slurred. Yan Wuxi bent forward a little, lowering his head to listen. Without warning, Shen Qiao spat out another large mouthful of blood. Yan Wuxi wasted no time to let go, and blood splattered all over his hand. Murderous intent poured from Yan Wuxi's eyes. I already said I want to cough up blood, Shen Qiao said weakly. It wasn't on purpose. He'd yet to finish his words when he collapsed sideways, unconscious. In his daze, he felt like he was floating in midair, swaying and drifting. Even his mind had drifted off, far away, and he didn't know how much time passed before it fluttered back, settling inside his body once more. As he opened his eyes, Shen Qiao heard someone sigh from beside him. How difficult life is. Why are you still alive? Isn't it antagonizing for you that you can never manage to die? It was Yan Wuxi's voice. Shen Qiao didn't reply. He felt that there was definitely something wrong with this man. I mean, Yan Wuxi already did whatever he pleased and was singularly unreasonable. Like what he'd done to the Zhu Yang strategy, volume of deluded thought, a priceless secret manual, and he destroyed it just like that. He didn't even leave himself a way out of it. Yeah, to all of that. People everywhere would kill for a glimpse of that scroll, but would never get it. And yet, Yan Wuxi had given Shen Qiao the opportunity to read it, just like that. When he'd met with Chen Gong's betrayal, when he'd faced Mu Tipo surrounding him with his men, Yan Wuxi must have been nearby. Yet he'd stood by and watched, making no move to intervene. Only after Shen Qiao had saved himself did Yan Wuxi turn up, and then only to lash out like he was trying to kill him. Which, it turned out, was to stimulate the true qi from the Zhu Yang strategy that was still in Shen Qiao's body. But Shen Qiao was by no means self-absorbed enough to believe that Yan Wuxi held him in any high regard, enough to painstakingly train Shen Qiao. He told himself that it was simply a manifestation of the man's erratic, mercurial personality, and hence it was too hard to reason anything about him. Mu Tipo's attendants have come to look for him, and Chen Gong is with them. He put you square in the sights of a sycophant like Mu Tipo. It's not too late to kill him, you know. Shen Qiao shook his head without speaking, then slowly propped himself up into a sitting position on the bed with his elbows. As he did, he discovered that coughing up all those mouthfuls of blood had actually left his chest much relieved. The dull pain was gone. He must have managed, by some lucky fluke, to cough up the stagnant blood from inside him, and it helped to heal his injuries. Thank you, sect leader Yan, he said. Yan Wuxi was very frank. I didn't expect that you'd spit out the stagnant blood either. I only wanted to force you to use the Zhuyang strategy's true qi. Shen Qiao heard the implications behind his words. If you hadn't survived, you'd have died in vain. Then what does Sect Leader Yan plan to do next? I'll go with you to Xuandu Mountain. Shen Qiao was quiet for a moment. The corner of his mouth twitched. Sect Leader Yan has a myriad of affairs to attend to every day. Why would you waste your precious time on someone like me? Yan Wuxi stroked his face in an imitation of love, as if Shen Qiao was a child. He had no way to stop him and could only let Yan Wuxi grip his chin and look him up and down like a piece of personal property. Your sect has the Xuanwu Strategy's volume of Lost Soul tucked away somewhere. Xuanwu Mountain is so large. Even though nobody there is my match, searching for it would be such a bother. Wouldn't you being with me make things much simpler? You wish for me to recall the contents of the scroll and write it down for you? Yan Wuxi smiled contemptuously. Only the mediocre need to read the text and write it down word by word. I've already cultivated with the scroll in the inner palace of Northern Shao, and I've seen the volume of deluded thought. With 2 of the 5, I've already grasped the essence of the Zhuyang strategy. Rather than read something you've written down, which could very well be lies, I could just fight you directly. That way, I'll be able to decipher the mysteries of the scroll that's hidden at Xuandu Mountain. He said to Shen Qiao, the true Xian Tian state lies not in a person's form, much less in mimicking them. Each path is forged by a human being. Tao Hongjing was able to combine the strengths of the 3 schools of thought, so of course I can create martial arts that go beyond his. He's not self-conscious at all. He sounded ridiculously arrogant, insufferably so, but on closer contemplation, Shen Qiao actually agreed with him. It was down to his own principles that Yan Wuxi was able to become the leader of a sect, and his martial prowess was such that he could live as he pleased. Given all that, he was indeed worthy of becoming a Grand Master who could stand at the summit of the world. See, this is kind of why I like him. Like, I mean, now he's still being an asshole. Like, yes. But, like, he's an asshole that's, like, hot and also can back up his shit. Like, he's flamboyant. He's out there. He's absolutely let the world burn. But, like, he's got the power to back up that everything. So, like, you gotta respect it a little bit. He both talks the talk and walks the walk. Yeah. Oh, yeah, he's insufferable, but I can't help but like it. Yep, exactly. I know, Peacock Pages, you're probably like halfway through that bottle, if not more by now. But, yeah. There was only one issue. There was no pleasure in interacting with this man on a daily basis from dawn to dusk. It was absolute torture. Yan Wuxi released him. Since you're awake now, we'll head out tomorrow, he said indifferently. Do I have a choice? Asked Shen Qiao helplessly. You can choose to walk out on your own while you're still relatively unwounded, or we can fight another round. Then I'll take you with me as I injure and cripple you. Shen Qiao had nothing to say to this. Like, great. Okay. Last chapter. Let me take a quick sip, and then we will get to chapter 16. All right. Chapter 16, Good and Evil. Of course, with Yan Wuxi around, there was no need to take the safer main roads. To save time, Yan Wuxi didn't pass through Chang'an, but instead went directly south to Luo Province, then on to Yu Province and Su Province from there. This route drastically shortened the distance of their journey, but at the same time, it led them through some less than peaceful areas, since they were close to the Qi-Shao border. After, after the disastrous drought of the previous year, when parched land stretched for thousands of kilometers, refugees were everywhere, and they were all flocking to the surrounding provinces and countries where food and vegetation were more plentiful. Even now, Shen Qiao and Yan Wuxi still saw many displaced wandering people along their journey. Few people in the world today could match Yan Wuxi when it came to martial arts, but he made for an awfully poor travel companion. Shen Qiao had yet to recover from his injuries. His eyes were sometimes good and sometimes bad, and had never returned to normal. At most, it was like before, where he could vaguely see smudges of light and shadows. Yan Wuxi showed him no gentleness on account of this, nor did he offer him special accommodation. As Yan Wuxi didn't need a carriage, he didn't rent one. Instead, he walked on ahead of Shen Qiao at a steady pace, his manner practically shouting, "Keep up if you can, and you better keep up if you can't." And so they traveled, one in front and one at the back, for several days. Just outside of Xiang province's city, they encountered another group of refugees. Oh, this part's a little sad. Not triggering, but sad, I think. These people were originally from Guang province. Because of the famine there, they'd been forced to trek vast distances to more affluent Xiang province. But the governor of Xiang province had refused to open the city gates for them and ordered his soldiers to keep a strict guard, forbidding them from letting a single one inside. The refugees lacked the strength to try their luck anywhere else, so all they could do was station themselves there outside the city. For all practical purposes, they were waiting for their slow deaths to overtake them. From the perspective of the imperial administration, one couldn't blame the governors for acting as they did. The city's food was limited. If they let the refugees in, they'd be responsible for arranging space for them, even though they were officially someone else's citizens. It added more stress to Xiang province itself, and if a time came when Xiang province didn't have enough food, the locals would suffer too. The Emperor of Qi, Gao Wei, was busy with his pursuit of hedonism, completely unwilling to manage the affairs of state. Before the food the court distributed to the provinces had even made it to them, had already been embezzled away. Not to mention, if the governor of Xiang province did let the refugees into the city, they'd get no appreciation for it from the court. Xiang province was quite close to Xuandu Mountain. With a few more days of southward travel, they'd reach the mountain, which stood just next to Mian province. The closer they got to Xuandu Mountain, the better Yan Wuxi's mood became. Oh, I bet he's being insufferable right now. It became so good, in fact, that he'd slowed his pace and waited for Shen Qiao to catch up. He was even in the mood to point out the local customs and culture to him. If someone didn't know any better, they might have thought that they were two longtime friends traveling together. He said to Shen Qiao, "During the Warring States period, Xiang province belonged to Chu, so Chu influence is strong here. The land is also rich and populous. A pity that Gao Wei does not care to manage it. Generations of the Gao family's hard work will likely be lost at his hands." Yamushi obviously had not the slightest respect for the Emperor of Qi. He called him by his name straight off the bat. That's a big no-no in Imperial Asia times. Shen Qiao squinted and saw the blurry figures of many people gathered outside the city. Children and women, both young and old, made up the majority. Their one bit of good fortune was that the weather wasn't too hot, otherwise a rampant plague would have probably arisen in such an encampment. I think what makes Yan Wuxi such a captivating character is that most authors wouldn't have the courage to make a male lead like him. He's very unique in the way. I feel like even the author can't control it. Yeah, he is definitely unique. I agree with you, Peacock Pages. Their one bit of good fortune was that the weather wasn't too hot. A plague would have probably... He shook his head helplessly and sighed. The common people live such difficult lives. Unmoved, Yamushi replied, Truth be told, this kind of scene plays out in other countries as well. Since the uprising of the 5 barbarians at the end of the Western Jin dynasty, all sorts of factions... What the heck? Is that my hair? Ew. There's a bug. It was crawling on my forehead. Ugh. Like, just like a gnat, but still. All sorts of factions have competed for authority, and countless lives were lost when they did it. This kind of famine happens every year, especially on the borders. Each country tried to transfer their problems to someone else, to absolve themselves of the responsibility, and they eagerly pushed their refugees onto other countries. When the plentiful years arrived, they'd just launch another war to annex the cities of neighboring countries. Mutinies were common, and regimes changed at every turn. No one puts any real thought into state administration, since the countries change hands and names every few years. Western Qi is just a more aggravated case. But I heard that sect leader Yan maintains another identity as a high-ranking official, and that the Emperor of Xiao relies on you heavily. I suppose that in your mind you believe that northern Xiao is the best chance of unifying the lands. Yamushi shrugged. Enlightened or not, emperors are all the same, he said lazily. The only difference is that some are able to curb their desires, while others aren't, or they don't wish to. Yuan Yang is hawkish and quick to kill, but he prohibits Buddhism and Taoism, and also dislikes Confucianism. As he isn't inclined to favor any particular side, he's left with very few choices. Since I wish to unify the 3 demonic sects, I need his assistance. The Yuan family has been in the Central Plains for many years. Although their ancestors were Xianbei people, they've long acculturated to the Han. The methods and systems of Xiao are all the same as the Han ones. So if a Yuan became emperor of a united land, they probably wouldn't do any worse than southern Chen. After journeying for a great many days and hearing about a great many things, Shen Qiao had gained a general understanding of the workings of the world as well. Buddhist master Shu Ting, who had intervened to stop Yan Wuxi that night at Chuyun Temple, was once a supporter of northern Xiao. However, he'd supported the old regent Yuan Hu, not the current emperor Yuan Yang. Buddhist master Shu Ting came from the Tian Tai sect and was the martial brother of Fa Yi, Tian Tai sect's current leader. But Tian Tai sect itself favored southern Chen, so the whole matter was wrapped up in the sect's internal feuds. It was a lengthy tale of its own. Yuan Yang had to untangle the state from its relationships with the Buddhist sects after he seized back his stolen power, especially if he wanted to eliminate Yuan Hu's remaining influence. And so nowadays, the Shu Ting line occupied something of an awkward position within Western Shou. Although it hadn't lost its status completely, Buddhist master Shu Ting would never be able to restore their former glory as long as Yuan Yang was in power. In Yuan Yang's eyes, the 3 schools of thought had their own ambitions. If he became involved with any one ideology, then his style of governance would inevitably be colored by them. As an emperor with a strong sense of autonomy, he rankled at the thought. In contrast, though Huan Yue's sect also had its own goals, they were clearly more suited to cooperation than the other sects, and they wouldn't ask Yuan Yang to promote a certain doctrine or try to sway his thinking. As Yan Wuxi and Shen Qiao conversed, they walked on towards the city gates. When ordinary people or merchants were entering the city, they'd often need to travel as a group to ward off harassment from refugees, and it went best if there was a male guard with them. This was because the refugees, driven into a corner by starvation, could turn to banditry and stealing from others by force. If beautiful women or children fell into the hands of bandits, not only would their uh, first time be in danger, they might also end up in a stew pot. With all this going on around them, Yan Wuxi and Shen Qiao together made for a rather peculiar and eye-catching combination. One was empty-handed and carried nothing, while the other leaned on a bamboo cane, looking frail and like a man recovering from a serious illness. They certainly did not seem like ordinary travelers. I might just start censoring parts of this myself. Yeah. From time to time, the roadside vagrants would go up to them and beg, but a glance was enough to tell that Yan Wuxi wasn't to be trifled with. They avoided him out of fear and turned instead to Shen Qiao, who looked meek and more easily persuaded. One group was a husband and wife dragging 3 or 4 children behind them up the road. They were skeletal and barely looked human any longer, more like puppets or zombies. Even their expressions were wooden. The oldest child couldn't be more than 6 or 7 years old, while the youngest was only 2 or 3. The last one hobbled and stumbled along since her parents lacked the strength to carry her. Clutching a corner of her mother's robe, she followed them, staggering. If things like this went on, the girl would end up exchanged for the child of another family to earn her parents a mouthful of food, or she'd be cooked and eaten by her parents themselves. People were pushed to the brink in such troubled times, and even the concerns of blood and family could be set aside for the sake of survival. When the husband and wife saw Shen Qiao walk past, they fell to their knees and begged him for food. Shen Qiao thought for a moment and fished out a portion of wrapped flatbread from his lappels and gave it to the youngest child. The couple were overjoyed and thanked him again and again. Then the husband snatched the bread from the child's hand and immediately took a huge bite. When he saw his wife and child staring at him, he hesitated for a long while before reluctantly breaking off a small piece and offering it to the wife. The wife took a small piece of flatbread but didn't eat it herself. Instead, she carefully broke it into several precious pieces and divided them among the children. The flatbread wasn't large, and they soon wolfed it down in a couple of bites. The nearby refugees watched them with covetous eyes, which they then turned to glare ferociously at Shen Qiao. The husband begged Shen Qiao, "The children have been hungry for days. Please, Your Excellency, give them another flatbread so they can hold on until we get into the city." Shen Qiao refused. "I'm not a wealthy man either. I only had 2 flatbreads with me. I've given you one, but I must also keep one for myself." When the husband heard that Shen Qiao still had food on him, his expression immediately changed. Seeing Shen Qiao's dull-eyed gaze and how he relied on a bamboo cane for support, his thoughts took an ugly turn. He lunged for Shen Qiao. But before he could even touch his sleeve, he'd already been sent flying in the opposite direction. He landed heavily on the ground with a wretched scream. Despite this, Shen Qiao still looked as sickly and frail as he'd always been. Looking at him, it was impossible to tell that he'd just sent a man flying. Of course, Shen Qiao hadn't expected his moment of kindness to end up this way. He looked at the man's wife and children again. They'd all huddled together, clutching each other in terror. When the other covetous refugees who'd been watching eagerly saw this scene play out, they became too afraid to try anything. The husband crawled upright arduously, but instead of begging for mercy, he cursed at Shen Qiao. "Well, go on, kill me! People like you are the biggest hypocrites, handing out alms just so you can relish our kowtows and thanks. If we're going to help someone, why not save them completely? You clearly still have a flatbread, so why not take it out? If you don't want to give that to us, then don't give us anything. Said you gave us one taste of relief, but nothing more, nothing filling. Might as well just kill us." Qiao sighed and shook his head. He said nothing, only turned and left. The entire time, Yan Wuxi was standing a short distance away, hands clasped behind his back. He neither intervened nor moved on. It was as if he simply waited for Shen Qiao, but with the shadow of a smile on his face. Now, of course, everyone knew he had food on him, but all they could do was watch as he left. Yan Wuxi waited until he was close before saying, "Have you ever heard the saying, a cup full of rice begets gratitude, while a cart full of rice begets resentment?" Shen Qiao sighed. "I was too rash. There are so many suffering, it's impossible to save them all myself." He needs to talk to Shailian, like early Prince Shailian. He needs to say that to him. A father didn't even care whether his children lived or died, yet you stepped in and did his job for him. Sect leader Shen really does possess a benevolent heart full of love. Yan Wuxi ridiculed him. It's just a pity that human greed knows no bounds and cannot fathom your good intentions. If you hadn't been able to defend yourself today, you'd probably have ended up as stew by now. Shen Qiao considered his words seriously. If I couldn't defend myself, I wouldn't have taken this road. I'd have chosen a longer route to avoid places where refugees gathered. It's human nature to seek benefits and avoid harm. I'm neither a saint nor an exception. I don't know why I struggle with that. But when someone is suffering right in front of me, I can't bear to stand by and watch. He clung stubbornly to goodness, but Yan Wuxi believed that it was human nature to do evil. On a fundamental level, they had no common ground. Yan Wuxi could doubtlessly kill Shen Qiao with his martial arts, but even choking Shen Qiao wouldn't get him to change his point of view. After this little interlude, the slight easing in the atmosphere between them vanished completely. "Sir!" The voice was small, weak, and came from behind them. Shen Qiao turned and saw a blurred silhouette, short and skinny, likely a child. The child ran to him, knelt down, and kowtowed to him 3 times with utmost seriousness. "Thanks, sir, for giving us the bread. Father was rude to you, but all I can do is kowtow to you and ask for your great forgiveness. Please don't hold it against him." Of course, Shen Qiao wouldn't hold any grudge when a child was involved. He sighed and helped him stand up. "I didn't take it to heart. I've heard that Buddha's birthday is soon. The people of Xiang province are Buddhists, so the temples will set up facilities and hand out kanji. They'll allow some refugees inside the city then. There's still a chance you'll survive." The child's eyes shone, and he thanked Shen Qiao repeatedly. "Thanks for telling me, sir. What's this gentleman's honored name? When I've got the chance, this lowly one will repay his debts and set up a longevity tablet for you for sure. So it's a memorial tablet erected in a person's name to wish them good fortune and a long life." Shen Qiao patted his head warmly. "That isn't necessary," he said. "Just take good care of your mother and younger siblings." The child nodded vigorously. Then he whispered, "Don't worry. I didn't eat the flatbread Mother gave me. I snuck it to my sister." When Shen Qiao heard this, he sighed to himself. His heart ached at the child's maturity. After a moment, he pulled out the remaining flatbread from his lappels and handed it to the young boy. "Take this back and eat it. Don't let your father find out." The child, so hungry that he was jaundiced and emaciated, somehow managed to find the strength to absolutely refuse the flatbread. In the end, Shen Qiao had to force it into his hand. "If you keep pushing it away, everyone else will see," he said. "Then there'll be trouble again." Only then did the child accept it. Once again, he kneeled and kowtowed to Shen Qiao. "Please won't this gentleman tell me his name?" he insisted. "My name is Shen Qiao." Shen Qiao. That child mulled it over several times. Perhaps he'd taken the Qiao as another Qiao with a different meaning, though it was impossible to know. Shen Qiao said nothing to correct him. The child left, looking back 3 times with each step he took. "It's late," said Yan Wuxi. "Let's hurry up and enter the city." Shen Qiao had noticed how he made no mocking remarks this time and found it odd. "You're not going to say anything?" "Some people just like doing stupid things," Yan Wuxi said coolly. "Even if you chide them, they won't listen. Why should this venerable one waste his breath?" Shen Qiao rubbed his nose and smiled, saying nothing. There was indeed much malice in the world, but he refused to let this quash his belief in kindness and benevolence. He felt the flatbread had been well worth the exchange for the little shred of goodwill. And that is where we're going to end it tonight. Not quite a cliffhanger, actually quite a good place to end it. They're about to enter the city. We'll see what happens next time, this Thursday. I will make sure to post, I think I'm going to call it Red Flag Moment. I'm not sure if I should put, like, essay Allusions, because like it didn't happen, but they definitely were talking about it. Do you think it's enough? Yeah, I'm gonna put essay Allusions. Yeah. But other than that, I think it was a pretty good stream. We had some yikes moments, but we also had some character development and plot development. So I view it as a good stream. Like this, it's hard to be like all like yay when we have rough moments like that, but like it is a good book. It's well written. Yeah, no worries about the timestamps. Yeah, definitely a good stream. We will continue this Thursday at our usual time of 8 CST, and I hope to see you there. And hopefully we won't have more red flag moments, but you know. Yeah. All right. Good night, everyone. I hope you have a good rest of your evening and a great day tomorrow. I will see you, hopefully, Thursday. And to everybody watching later, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope the warning helps. Good night. Oh, yeah. See you next Tuesday, Plude. Good night.